Test get into this.
Oh, this seat feels weird. I want my seat back.
That's because it was warm.
Thanks, Daddy.
I was going to say, oh, that looks weird.
I sit higher in this seat for some reason.
You want this one?
And then this little thing right here, they even want to so that
I'm right in front of the camera.
I see.
All of my shirts are.
I've never seen this shit.
Just don't ask me things.
Well, if you made them all run out, then that would be okay. Because then you could make a decision.
Over here, Matt.
I've been through worse. I got plenty of ex-wives.
Hey, Chris, you want to wear my? You want to wear my hoodie?
Yeah, I want one. We don't even have to buy all. We want to buy one.
I got a couple shirts.
Heck yeah! I told Chris I want to frame it in his office like a sports jersey.
We'd like to see you guys wearing it. We'll give it to you for free. See, here's another
Who
one.
will give
Yeah.
it to him for free?
Hey,
Oh.
okay.
You're giving away my shirt?
If they wear it.
At the end of the night, I got to get a picture of you guys with the shirts.
Go ahead. You stand right up there.
Yeah, come on, we'll go stand around and.
Yeah, we'll get everybody. You guys, more of you the better.
Okay.
Make Chris look small.
I didn't sorry, I didn't mean to give it away.
No, we're not
this
giving
right here is the success. This should.
We'll buy.
Okay, now I got something. Yeah.
See, we just charge them double what it costs.
Hey, we're just help covering your guys' costs.
They're thinking they're gonna have more money.
No, that I did.
That's only
Not the
part of
way
it.
our
I only printed out.
We don't get money.
They get paid a lot as it is. Look at all the
Again,
projects.
don't tell my ex-wife.
Look at all the projects, man.
Oh my God, yeah, but a few years ago there was a whole lot of none.
Wait, you're saying you have to make up for it now?
We don't have to make up for it, but it's busy for sure.
What?
That's purple. Yeah. Hi, Donna. Oh, way over. Now I will. Come on over, Donna. Chris is gonna come and we're gonna take a picture of all of us and Chris right
With the shirts, yeah.
I'll post it on the Lemon Valley Flood system.
There you go.
Yeah.
How are you?
And she's all concerned about fresh air for the kids.
What?
Yeah. She's all about
No,
fresh
that
air for the
would
kids. She's for moms for fresh air.
Dakota, my dog
Well,
Dakota.
it doesn't help. There's a whole bunch of development.
No,
How
she
do you have
should.
fresh air?
Should have been speaking at the city of Reno. Worried about fucking fresh air.
Yes.
This is just a little portion of our mess.
So anyway, now I go pick him up, and I got a prescription for some food. I got fried chicken that I like. I'm not gonna buy it. So, and they're so I ate some fried chicken and then went out. I was gonna walk.
Somebody had.
probably be there.
Hang in there.
Do you want to see which picture? It's coming along, about 90% done. Cost, I gotta keep it in order. Well over $60,000. Well, I took $60,000 disaster loan. And then I took, I got a whole lot of credit. There's some stuff that like new furnace. My first
Oh, there's nothing to be nervous about. They're just people.
So now my deck is supposed to get started last week.
No, just want to give it to them. I've done that before, but it's a lot of wasted money, so I decided not to. That work?
Well, I got 6:28 on the clock, 6:29 on the clocks. How many timeouts do you have left?
You're not?
Sit down on the Board of Equalization, I had to have the chairman, and I haven't had to talk all the time. When was that?
Well, it's in February, because you have to complete it by the 28th of February. We only had
I gotta tell you that the regional road impact fee meeting this last month was very interesting. Oh, yeah. Shit's gonna hit the fan. Doubling them. Over the developers get bodies.
If we wanted to do that for urban housing.
It's, when you do the arithmetic, it comes out right. And Julie Masterboard, who's the RTC staff member, she's aces. I've known her for a long time. So, yeah. Here we go. Here we go.
Gentlemen. I'm operational too. Are we ready, gentlemen?
You have our permission.
Thank you.
Please.
Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Washoe County Planning Commission. I have determination of a quorum, please.
Sarah Savilicek,
Present.
Larry Chesney,
Present.
James Barnes, Thomas Bruce, Francine Donchik,
Present.
Philip Haran,
Here.
Michael Lawson.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Haran, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Edwards, could we have the ethics law announcement, please?
Commissioners are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission today, you have received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered tonight, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you have had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd, the appeals process?
Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Planning Commission Chair and/or the Secretary of the Planning Commission, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you. Do we have any general public comment?
We do. We have Stephen Wolgast, followed by Tammy Holtstill.
Thank you.
For the record, Steve Walgast, 5220 Cedarwood Drive. I want to speak about growth and the character of the Truckee Meadows. Reno bills itself as the biggest little city. It does not aspire to be the biggest city. Residents here don't want to live in a sprawling metropolis like Phoenix or Vegas or Anaheim. Development needs to respect the Truckee Meadows, its unique character and its rugged beauty. It's an amalgam of ranches and casinos, hunters and students, horsemen and professionals, runners and quad riders that has resulted in a friendly, tolerant culture. This will not survive undisciplined growth like we are presently experiencing. Long-term development plans have been drawn up for the area. These include the North Valley Area Plan, the Forest Area Plan, and the South Valleys Area Plan. These plans anticipated growth, but were intended to preserve the rural scenic nature of these areas. For the city, there is the new Reimagine Reno plan that will allow for workers to live near their jobs in a scenic setting with less dependence on their cars. This will appeal to many of the younger workers and those that immigrate for jobs in high tech. Altogether, these plans define development that will retain the appeal of the Truckee Meadows for the indefinite future. So what's with all the PUDs, rezonings, special permits, and variances? These are allowing 4, 5, 8, and even 10 homes per acre in areas that were zoned 1 home per acre or 1 home per 4 acres. These exceptional plans are putting too much traffic on roads intended for rural transit. These are greatly increasing the risk of flooding to both new and existing residents. The support infrastructure for schools, fire, police, water, and sewage treatment can't keep up with this high-density growth. The area plans and the Reno plans represent a huge investment in time and effort by a large number of residents and the county and city employees. Let these guide our planning decisions. There are plenty of choices if you want to live in a big city, but there isn't another Truckee Meadows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Holtstill, followed by Danny Cleos.
Tammy Holt-Still, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. The water's still there. I'm still here for the record. I'd like to start off with a quote from the Reno Gazette-Journal. Just a moment. It says, "It is developers' responsibility to build in such a way that they are not changing natural conditions of water movement under somebody else's property," Thomas said. "If you develop in such a way that by moving the water, the naturally would go into an aquifer or a natural, quote, some other else's property, you are indulging in a form of trespassing. And when government gives you permission to do so without requiring you to build safely and properly, it's possible that the government is putting themselves in some degree of legal liability." That's something to think about. Which leads me to November 16th, if I can have the overhead, please. November 16, 2017 storm. You will find this is patrician. If you look at this photo, you will see the amount of storm runoff that was happening that day. Then you add the Truckee Meadows River Drainage Manual, Section 302.1, 302.4, 303.1 for guidelines which are not followed. And it's Reno and Washoe County needs to work together as an accumulative for Lemon Valley. Swan Lake is showing the results of the non-cooperativeness. Hopefully by the time all the facts that you will be receiving by me are supplied, you will see your staff did not give you all your information, and that you will find there is not enough findings to approve the Lemon Valley subdivision. The word accumulative for stormwater runoff is good for stormwater runoff, effluent, traffic, and schools. My focus tonight will be on the Washoe County Reclamation Facility. It starts off with the NAC. That sewer plant is built within a floodplain. If it wasn't built within a floodplain, it wouldn't cost over $500,000 to be raised. Also, you have the Washoe County Development Code regarding flood hazards. You can see right there, any activity that decreases the volume of the flood storage zone 1, I will be back.
Thank you.
Danny Cleos, followed by Donna Robinson. Thank you.
Danny Cleus for the record. Been a Nevada resident for 45 years. Lived in Lemon Valley for almost 39 years. It'll be 39 years, May 3rd, exactly. We need to quit this sprawl. It doesn't fit our area one bit. You'll be seeing a thing on 8A that they want to condense. I'll be speaking on that one too and show you more. The city of Reno has made a mess out of the North Valleys already. We don't need the county to do the same, especially in my valley. Been there a long time, seen a lot of stupid stuff that the county will do and will not do. This development coming up on 8A is not a good one, not for anybody. If anybody has been out there lately, the water hasn't gone anywhere. If you listen to Dave Solero, said it dropped 3 feet. Exactly. It's risen. It's only 6 inches away from Lemon Valley Drive again. 6 inches higher, and it's over the Lemon Valley Drive. Culverts are leaking. We have no good culverts. Mr. Dwayne Smith in a county commissioner's update meeting said all the drainage in our area is inadequate. It needs to be updated, but yet nobody has any money to do that. What's going to happen when these new developments want to keep continuing in 1 acre plus parcels? It's just going to make our situation worse. We don't need that. We need responsible building by responsible developers. Do the right thing. Continue what is out there to be out there. We don't need 6, 8, 10 homes per acre. It doesn't fit in our rural area. Might fit in somebody else's, but you're going to do the same thing the city of Reno and the city of Sparks did. You bring the city folk out there, our rural area goes bye-bye, just like the city of Reno, just like the city of Sparks. All the farms are gone. Look at Spanish Springs. I used to play in those farmers' fields out there. Now you can't do it because it's all built up. There's a recent study just done, was delivered to the city of Reno. We don't have any working areas anymore. Why is that? because somebody's money hungry and had to build. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Robinson.
Donna Robinson for the record, and I'm a resident of Lemon Valley, and I am one of the flood victims. I just recently got back into my house in mid-December. After a $60,000 loan, I was able to repair my home. Flood insurance paid nothing, and yes, I had flood insurance. I applaud Mr. Baker from Lemon Valley Heights Development for hiring a hydrologist to study the water issues and impacts of his subdivision. However, we need to take a hard look at anything that's being built in any of these flood areas and realize how are we impacting the homes that have been there and are still there. There are numerous homeowners that are no longer being able to live in their homes because of impacted by this flood. I'm asking you to look at the things that is causing this. Look at where is the effluent water going to go? The Lemon Valley Sewer Plant? It's underwater. How is it going to put more water and deal with sewer when it's already underwater and has been? The other thing is at the cab a couple weeks ago, Mr. Baker said for traffic, it would impact the area, which is right there by Lemon and Palace and Patrician, which is a school zone where numerous kids walk to school. We put these homes that are 5, 6 homes per acre. I think the handout was 1 home per 0.1 acres. How many cars is that going to add to that 2-lane road? Now, it's okay, Mr. Baker said, that, you know, if our traffic rating is currently a B, they can go all the way down to a D. Would you want your kids coming home with a D on their report card? I don't think so. Some serious things need to be looked at, need to be addressed before we can build in this area, in any area that is a floodplain. I know that the development off of estates, that's going to impact my home because all their water is going to come to Swan Lake. Swan Lake filled up and came onto my property, and I'm a block away from the lake, more than that originally. I don't want lakefront property. If I wanted lakefront property, I would have bought lakefront property. I did not. I've lived there for 25 years. I want to feel safe in my home and know that it's not going to flood the next time we get a heavy rainstorm or a heavy snowstorm. These last 2 storms, I had more than 6 inches of snow at my house on each occasion. That's 12 inches of snow over a week. Think about it. Thank you.
No further public comments.
Thank you. A motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And then action to approve the draft minutes. And Commissioner Donchek?
I make a motion to approve, but I have a correction.
Well, we need to address the correction first before we do the approval.
Right, for the first item, 8A, there was no recap of our vote in there where it usually gives it says which carried unanimously or whatever. There was nothing in there, it's missing. So we need to make sure that shows for the record.
I noticed that as well.
On page 4.
Yes.
So the outcomes of the vote is not present in the minutes like it is on the other items.
Correct.
Mr. Lloyd's quickly looking through there.
And I apologize. Commissioner Donchek, can you repeat again the error you found in the minutes?
Well, on page 4, just above Washoe County Code Section 110, usually there's a recap of our vote. There is no recap when we made the motion of who voted what the final vote was for that for item 8A.
Okay. We'll go back and listen to the minutes carefully and make sure that it's cleaned up and we have the accurate minutes reflected. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Edwards, with something missing like that in the minutes, how do we approve as noted for amendment?
Yes, I would say you move to approve it with staff to follow up on adding that piece.
I make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
And in the interest of that point we just talked about, can you state the tally of the vote?
Yes. It was a unanimous decision. Oh, you mean from,
For each
For the
item.
elect-
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
And for the one we just had.
yes, okay. We're at now to public hearing items. Mr. Lloyd, call for the agenda item.
All right, this is item 8A, tentative subdivision map, case number WTM 18-001, Lemon Valley Heights. For possible action, hearing, and discussion to approve a 206-lot, single-family residential common open space subdivision. Lot sizes are proposed to range from a minimum size of 4,500 square feet, or roughly 0.1 acres, to a maximum size of 17,206 square feet, roughly 0.39 acres, with an average size of 6,540 square feet, or 0.15 acres. Side yard setbacks are proposed to be reduced from a minimum of 8 feet to a minimum of 5 feet, and lot widths from 80 feet to 45 feet minimum, and from Washoe County Planning and Building, Senior Planner Roger Pelham.
Thank you. Disclosures by commissioners, either ethics or ex parte communications?
I did a site visit.
Okay, thank you.
I did as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open the public hearing, and thank you very much, Mr. Pelham.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning and Building. Tentative subdivision map, case number WTM 18001, Lemon Valley Heights, is a request for a 206-lot, single-family residential subdivision. And Mr. Lloyd has given you the details on that. It is located in the Lemon Valley area, as shown on the subject site here. This is, as you're going north, you pass Military on the left, and then it's a little mile or two further up on the right there near Estates Road. The North Valley Citizen Advisory Board did meet and considered this item on the 12th of last month, and they did recommend approval. Public notice for this project included 146 parcels within 500 feet of the proposed subdivision. The minimum number is 30 individual property owners. This was reviewed by all of the relevant agencies. Those agencies which reviewed and provided comments and conditions have all been included in the recommended conditions of approval, which are attached to your staff report as Exhibit A. I did not receive any recommendations for denial, and again, included all of the recommended conditions. This is a bit small, I'm afraid. There are two separate areas of development, the northern portion that is adjacent to Lemon Drive there, and then the southern portion, which is sort of further up the hill. And can sort of be shown here on the overall map. And then here, zoomed in on the northern portion, outlined in blue. And again, the southern portion, outlined in blue. Stormwater, you may have guessed or may already know, is an important topic. The applicant has designed this subdivision and the stormwater management retention on site such that the amount of runoff after development will be less than the amount of runoff prior to development. This is the plan presented with the application. In the lower left-hand corner, you see a series of 3 ponds. Those would actually, the match line for that little bit is in the upper left-hand corner, and so the scale is different, but they would be up to the further left side there. That would actually be going south. Going downhill to your right, you can see a retention basin there adjacent to, again, the southern section, and then 3 more retention basins near the northern section. That configuration will probably change somewhat based upon the conditions of approval that have been required by the reviewing agencies, particularly Washoe County Engineering. The county engineer, I was going to turn it over to him at this point, but I'll actually take this portion. He will be available after my presentation for any technical questions that you might have and to address any technical questions that the public may have. One condition of approval, it is 3YY. He is asking that we remove that and replace it with this condition of approval. And Katie, can we go to the overhead for a moment, please? The important part of that change is that Deodore Way is required to be paved as emergency access under the current set of conditions. The revised condition eliminates that requirement, but requires that, if I can get over here, that the applicant raise the elevation of Lemon and such that this would be above any flood zone. And that would essentially, that would allow the creation of the emergency access on the existing roadway system.
Roger, does that mean you're creating a levee road there in essence?
I think I will leave that for the county engineer.
Okay, thank you.
If we can go back to my presentation. So, getting past stormwater, the development of the parcels of land are really on the flatter areas. This area came before you for a zone change and a master plan amendment about a year ago. We took the residential density off of the steep areas and moved it to the flat areas, and that's in accordance with the North Valley's area plan. Those steep areas are still included in the overall project, but those are going to remain as open space. Article 438 is our grading code. We have some pretty stringent standards when it comes to the creation of slopes and how those are going to sort of blend in with the existing undisturbed areas, and those stringent standards will be met with the construction improvement drawings with the final map. This will be served by community water and community sewer. Again, stormwater runoff will be reduced post-development state. And those parcels that match up to the existing dwellings, each of those parcels are going to match the size of those existing ones. So any new parcels, again, will match the size of the existing ones. This was evaluated by the Washoe County School District, and with the additional students that would be anticipated to come from the new subdivision, Lemon Valley Elementary would be at about 96% capacity, O'Brien 80, and North Valley's High School 99. So with that, I would like to move to the findings. The map is, in my opinion, consistent with the goals and policies of the master plan. I've gone into a detailed analysis of those in the staff report, and I can certainly address any specific area plan policy that you might have a question on. The design or improvement is consistent with the master plan, and there is no specific plan in this case. There are a number of design requirements included with the Lemon Valley Suburban Character Management Area. Each of those design criteria have been addressed in the application materials. The type of development, this is physically suited. Certainly the development is taking place on the most suitable lands, those flat areas. not up on the steep hillsides. Services are in fact available. We have not only the comments from the reviewing agencies, but requirements that prior to any final map, they will have water and sewer service, and there will be sufficient capacity, again, prior to any final map. Neither the design of the proposed subdivision or the improvements are likely to cause any substantial detriment to wildlife in the area. Again, that is not likely to cause any significant, problems for public health. Again, this is going to be on community water and community sewer systems. All existing easements will be perpetuated or relocated. Access has been designed in accordance with Washoe County requirements for public roadways. The applicant, I understand, may seek to dedicate that open space to Washoe County at some point in the future. We would evaluate at that point to determine whether that would be beneficial for us to take over that or whether it would remain under the control of a homeowners association. In as much as is possible, the houses will be oriented to take advantage of passive heating and cooling. And with that, I come to my recommendation. Those agencies which reviewed did recommend conditions and support. And I am recommending approval, subject to the conditions that are listed in the staff report, and have the following motion for your consideration. This does vary slightly from the motion that is in your staff report and that I highlighted there. And that is with the conditions, with the change to condition 3YY as specified by the county engineer and has been shown earlier in this presentation. With that, I am available for any questions that you might have.
Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Please. Commissioner Brand.
Go ahead.
I think mine's on now. Would you address the sewer issue that was brought up in public comment while you're, I'm sure there's going to be other questions, but could you address that now?
I would actually prefer to refer to the expert on that, Dwayne Smith, County Engineer.
Do we want to,
So before
do we want to
Mr.
start that
Yeah,
now or late?
Do we want to start that now, or commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Pelham?
No, my questions are for Mr.
Okay,
Smith.
all right, so stay close, because we may have
I
questions.
certainly will.
So, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering for Washoe County and your county engineer. It's a pretty broad question, Commissioner. Can I help to alleviate any concerns through some information that I might provide?
Well, I think you were here when public comment was. They made some comments about the availability of that was underwater. Could you please address that?
Very good.
As specifically as you could.
And I appreciate that. And so I apologize in advance if my answer becomes a little bit long. Feel free to cut me off at any time.
No, we won't do that.
Currently, Washoe County owns Lemon Valley Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's a facility located adjacent to the playa. And we're permitted to accept up to 300,000 gallons a day of sewage for treatment. We currently receive about 220,000 gallons a day for treatment. That water, under permit, is discharged, comes into the plant, goes through the treatment process, and then is discharged to our holding ponds. Those holding ponds are adjacent to the plant and adjacent to the Swan Lake Playa. At several times during the year, we open up a gate and allow for that treated effluent that has been in those ponds to go into the Swan Lake Playa. So the volume of water that we actually discharge into Swan Lake is significantly less than the small amount of water that comes into the plant for treatment. I can provide you more detail information, but I think it's important to recognize the operation of the plant and that we are under our permitted values for discharge to the Swan Lake Playa. Again, we receive approximately 220,000 gallons a day of wastewater, and we discharge on average, about 65 acre-feet a year into the playa. Some years a little bit more, some years a little bit less. Those years that we, under an agreement with the Audubon Society and others, part of the reason that we discharged the Swan Lake Playa is to provide habitat for birds. It's, as a lot of people know, and certainly if you live out there, it's a very great place to see a lot of the bird habitat.
Could I?
Keep going, yes.
Could you address is it underwater or not underwater?
The treatment plant is not underwater. The treatment plant is surrounded by berms. Those berms have been in existence since the plant was built. And with the unprecedented flood events that we experienced last year in 2017, as a result of the record-setting precipitation events, we raised the berms around the treatment plant and around 2 of the sludge ponds. So in order for us to maintain access, safe access to the facility, to make sure that the facility is fully operational during the flood event, we expended ratepayer dollars to raise the berms around the plant and the sludge ponds so that our staff could continue to gain access, so that our facilities continued to be in good operating condition, and that we could stay within our permit.
Okay, so it is definitely, specifically, uncategorically is not underwater.
Uncategorically, the treatment plant is not, nor has ever been, underwater.
Thank you.
Excuse me, if I may, I do expect decorum and respect and civility in this chamber. And we listen to all of you. Please listen to all of the facts that we will receive before we make our decision this evening. Thank you.
Okay, that was question. The second question I had earlier, which I tried to address for Mr. Pelham, which he referred to you. Are we creating a levee road there? How, at what point in time, where does it kind of go, and then it goes up and then it goes down?
I appreciate the question, because I think this goes to a broader comment and a broader answer that I think the board, that you should be aware of as you consider new developments, specifically within the Swan Lake Hydro Basin. Washoe County and the City of Reno have been collaborating to look at alternatives to provide safe emergency access into and out of the area in the event that there are future floods. We don't know when future floods may occur. We don't know to the level of what those floods may occur. But what we have committed to is requiring development to assist in the process of providing safe access for both the existing residents that live there now, so that they can get in and out safely, and for any new residents that come in through new development. What the Public Works Director and I have settled on is that that Lemon Drive, which is a City of Reno roadway, it is not a Washoe County roadway, that roadway be elevated to provide safe access during flood events. This is an alternative to there certainly are alternative ways to provide alternative access. But what the board needs to know is that there are several factors that are driving this. First of all, Lemon Valley is under the RTC's 2040 plan for widening. Portions of that are identified for widening. So with the roadway being widened in the near future, and I'm not going to tell you exactly when because I don't know exactly when that is, we can also incorporate an elevation project into that project to both provide benefit, again, for the existing residents and for the new residents, and do it in the most cost-effective means. So if we're able to elevate Lemon Drive, then we can eliminate some of the longer alternative routes that we have had to put into place when we had to close Lemon Drive due to the flooding events. Secondly, with Lemon Drive, we recognize that its current elevation, when we do have these large unprecedented flood events, has to be closed. We have to close it for the safety of the traveling public. That creates a situation where the residents have to come in and out of the developments in different ways. So by raising the elevation of Lemon Drive, the goal is to create, I'm not going to use the term levee because that has certain connotations as in terms of design, but to create an elevated roadway that the 2 center lanes are fully passable under flood events up to an elevation of 4926. 4926 is the elevation that was established for the protection level, and that is the existing protection level that we see now with the HESCO barriers that are in place as we sit and speak right now. That elevation was determined through a series of events last year when we looked at what the snowpack levels were, we looked at what the lake elevations were, and we made predictions using assistance from DRI, the Weather Service, and others to come up with a protection level. That protection level of 4926 is 2 feet above the FEMA designated floodplain elevation of 4924. And it's also, and I have to let you know that the highest water level that we saw in Swan Lake last year was 4923.3, which was still below the 100-year elevation. So I think it's important to recognize that the FEMA elevation of 4924, which we did not reach last year, is 2 feet below what the City of Reno and Washoe County are collaboratively working together to condition the new developments to raise the elevation of Lemon Drive, I don't know why I keep saying that, of Lemon Drive, so that it provides future safe access for both the existing residents and for any new residents that come into the area.
Can I continue?
Yes.
So the elevation that we're talking about now is a very small portion of that then?
It is a small portion of the overall Lemon Drive.
So, and we don't know how that's going to be worked out in the future. The developer's going to pay for this, is that right?
The developer is conditioned under the conditions that we provided to raise Lemon Drive.
So is this a quarter mile, 100 yards, a half a mile? What is it? I saw some lines on there, but I couldn't tell what the length was.
I don't know the exact length of it, but what we're also doing, and it's important to recognize as well, that the other developer that annexed all the Washoe County land into the City of Reno approximately 2 years ago, he's the master developer for the other locations, both immediately north and continuing up along Lemon Drive all the way up to the existing subdivision in the north. He is being conditioned to also raise Lemon Drive to the elevation of 4926 in front of his developments. Working together with the developers, working with the City of Reno, and working with RTC, as I mentioned before, RTC has a pre-programmed road widening project. What our goal is to bring these together in the most efficient and effective way to raise the elevation of Lemon Drive.
Does that mean then we're going to only have water on one side of the road?
As part of the road raising and widening project, the thing that the developers will also have to be, is also required and as part of that condition, is to construct gates or valves on the culvert pipes so that those gates or valves can be closed when it's determined that they need to be closed. Part of that is you have to understand that all kinds of runoff and surface drainage that comes in from the east passes across and then ultimately underneath Lemon Drive as it enters the Swan Lake Basin, the playa. The ability to close those culvert pipes is critical. Currently, because of the flood conditions that we experienced, we have all those culvert pipes surrounding the lake closed. They're done with bladders, they're done with other barriers. And while that is fully suitable, is working, has been working, and will continue to work, this approach to include valves or some other mechanism in the culvert pipes will make that process much easier and more efficient than the process that we're currently going through. So yes, the goal will to keep Swan Lake in Swan Lake.
Okay, thank you.
So if I may add on to that, what is the future flooding, how is future flooding plans going to be mitigated by Washoe County? So what is the mitigation plan for future flooding for Lemon Valley, excuse me?
On September 12th, 2017, and again affirmed on December 12th, 2017, the Board of County Commissioners gave staff 4 directions. That was to maintain the protection levels that were established by Washoe County in the basin to protect the residents and their properties through the HESCO barrier system, to maintain the stormwater pumps and the seepage pumps in place, and to continue to expend the dollars for those efforts. That was number one. Number two was direction to staff to create a flood response action plan, a FRAP. The third was to create a mitigation plan to look at what the return frequencies, what the potential was for future flooding, to come up with strategies for those future flood events based on what that potential future risk analysis showed, to develop capital projects or projects that would identify how to mitigate those impacts, develop cost estimates for those projects, and then to make recommendations for how to pay for those. The fourth item was to, I'm drawing a blank. The fourth item was to pursue FEMA hazard mitigation grant program for the purchase and acquisition of certain properties within the closed hydro basin. Washoe County staff is working on all four of those. You're asking specifically about number three, which is the development of a mitigation plan. That process is underway. It is a lengthy process, and based on the information that we will generate over the next time frame, the next numbers of months, we will come back with possible recommendations for projects, estimated cost, and possible funding strategies.
So for clarification, this mitigation plan, or those, what the BCC charged you with, that's for all flood mitigation in all of Washoe County, or is it just for the closed basins in Lemon, Red Rock, and Cold Springs?
Thank you for that clarification. It was for the closed hydro basins, including
Okay.
Silver, Swan, and White.
Thank you. And so does the discharge from the wastewater treatment plant cause flooding?
I will.
I think you've addressed that, but if I'm just going to ask it that succinctly.
Maybe another way to if I can show you a pond curve for Swan Lake, I might be able to. This is a larger. On there. That's pretty good. So this is a curve. This is what we call a storage curve for Swan Lake, and it's developed based on the topography of the lake. And it shows the volume along the bottom axis here. And it shows the elevations, along the bottom and the volumes on the vertical axis. In the fall of 2016, Swan Lake was in essence empty. There was very little water in the bottom of Swan Lake at that time. Through the unprecedented and record-setting precipitation events that started in 2016 and continued through the beginning of 2017, Swan Lake received over 9,000 acre-feet of water. Just to give you a little perspective, 9,000 acre-feet of water, if you multiply that by 351,000 plus, it gives you gallons. That's a significant number of gallons of water. We're talking about a lake here. If you look at what the volume of flows that come into the Lemon Valley wastewater treatment plant, again, about 220,000 gallons a day now, if you took that water, all of that water, not distributed over a year, but if you took all of that water immediately and you discharged it to Swan Lake at its current elevation, it would raise the lake less than a half an inch. It is a very de minimis volume of water compared to the significant volume of water that was delivered through runoff and precipitation events, again, beginning in 2016 and continuing through the beginning of 2017.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some concerns about reading the conditions of approval, and specifically Exhibit A, Section Q, R and S. Page number 10 and 11 of 18 on Exhibit A. So the conditional approval of this tentative map shall not be construed as final approval of the drainage facilities. Final approval of the drainage facilities will occur during the final map review and will be based upon the final hydrology report. Then in R, it talks about a master hydrology and hydraulic report and master storm drainage plan shall be submitted to the county engineer for approval. And then the county engineer shall determine compliance. And in S, we get more of the same. Prior to finalization, a detailed hydraulic report for the unit shall be submitted to the county engineer. All storm drainage improvements necessary, blah, 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 should be constructed to county standards. Here's my concern. We have preliminary hydrology reports and hydraulic reports. My packet from a week or so ago has already been changed with a condition that talks about raising Lemon Drive as a new condition that's going to deal with this flooding. It wasn't included until a week or so ago, or until today that I saw. So these preliminary reports we get that are presented to the public for debate are quite honestly not as comprehensive as the final report that I'm assuming the county engineer will receive. And I'm wondering why that is. I'm wondering why we do all of this, invite public out for comments, present them with information that's tentative, subject to change, going to be approved by somebody else later on, and we try to convince them that everything's going to be okay. I'm not comfortable with that, and I don't know exactly. I've tried to address that with staff. Maybe we'll talk about it later. But my concerns are that I see so much conflicting information here between the testimony of staff, the testimony of the constituency, that it's difficult for me to be comfortable that this is all going to be okay when we get to the final approval. Can you address my concerns?
Certainly, Commissioner, I appreciate that. I think that what you're really asking is we go through this as staff on a daily basis. We've looked at many projects over many years, as all municipalities do. And this is the process that's in place, and this is the process that works. It's kind of looking at it in a little bit more coarser way initially, and then it's fine-tuned as the development progresses. Little things can change. Maybe a roadway gets moved, a detention basin gets shallowed or deepened. There might be some other design element that's put into place or taken out of place, which are all natural products as you move through a project. But those aren't things that make significant deltas or changes to a project. They don't make monumental changes to the hydrology, for instance, in this case, what you're discussing. If they did, then I would stop that process, and it would have to go back to an earlier part of the process, and it may even have to come back for further review under a revised tentative map approval process. But what we do is we do require a full hydrology report, and that hydrology report lays out the framework and provides enough specifics that we can take the code requirements and apply those code requirements to make sure that they're meeting those minimum standards. And then as we work together through the project and there's refinement, we'll further take those codes and make sure that those refinements fall within. From my perspective, I don't have that same issue. And again, I deal with this every day. I deal with this for a long time, as all municipalities do. So I'm very confident in the process that we've developed, the backing and forthing, if that's the right terminology, the working through the details, and ultimately, until a project does meet my staff and myself, our satisfaction, it doesn't move forward to a final map. So this is something that I want to make sure that I'm clear with you on, and I want you to have full confidence in the process that we go through in review of development, and that we make sure that it meets Washoe County Code requirements. Now, I want to be real clear here. There is the elephant in the room. We condition for all development, for both stormwater and in areas where there are FEMA floodplains, we also have the additional FEMA floodplain requirements per our code and per the Truckee Meadows Drainage Manual, further focused in on closed hydrobasins. We do not design for or guarantee protection under all events. We design to 100-year storm events, 5-year, 100-year return frequencies. We design culvert sizes based on those anticipated flows. We design and condition, or we condition and require the development based on those, not on record-setting flood events that occurred, such as in 2017. That is not the standard of practice of any municipality. It's not Washoe County standard of practice. We are very concerned about how we move forward with looking at things that have been identified through the flood. Raising of Lemon Drive is one of those. So I want to give you full assurance that that is a reflection of the collaborative approach between the City of Reno and Washoe County. City of Reno owning the roadway, Washoe County currently having the majority of the residents in the area. Those are our people, those are our folks. So we're working collaboratively to come up with strategies that are going to be put into place by new development. New development is bringing to the table those changes, those developments, those improvements to help both the existing and the future customers. So I do apologize if that was a last-minute condition, but I want to be clear that that's something that's been collaboratively discussed and is in place between the City of Reno and Washoe County for conditioning new projects within the Lemon Valley area.
Thank you for your very thorough answer. A follow-up question, if I may? That's a City of Reno roadway, and it's Washoe County residents. And I'm just wondering, is there a strategy to affect repairs or to raise that roadway if there is no new development? I mean, or is there a funding source, or how does that work?
It's a City of Reno roadway, but it's also captured on the Regional Transportation Commission's list of regional roads. So repair work is done through RTC funding. And what I mentioned was the widening is identified in RTC's 2040 plan. If there is no development that occurred, I don't know where funding would come from to raise the roadway. That's one of the benefits that we can condition new development to bring these value-added actions through new development. So to answer your question, I don't have a specific answer for you, but I know that it's not included with what RTC does. I know it's not, Washoe County doesn't have a capital program for raising roadways. And the City of Reno, I'm 100% certain, doesn't have a program for raising roadways either. I don't know where the funding would come from.
So Commissioner Lawson, if I may, so Mr. Smith, what you're saying, so if nothing happens, if no more development happens in Lemon Valley, what is the plan in place to do the existing repairs to that roadway?
Until the mitigation plan is completed that identifies potential strategies or alternatives, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Lawson?
Madam Chair.
Okay, I was going to go in order, but do you have a question specific to the roads, or?
No, not specifically to the road. Okay.
Can I come down the line?
Yeah,
All
okay.
right. Commissioner Hand, did you have further questions?
So, it's on.
It's on now. Maybe we should just never turn them off.
So this could be, this elevation could be done on a piecemeal basis, and this development will do some of it, then we'll wait for some more to do some more of it?
If that is ultimately the strategy, then that may be the ultimate strategy. But what I said before.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not being clear. I mean, right now, we're talking about this particular development working on this part of the road. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about?
Our condition requires the developer to raise that portion of Lemon Drive associated with his project. The next developer is also conditioned to do that.
So we could be going like this for a while.
What we're very much managing towards is the RTC road widening project and bringing these together for the benefit of the residents.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That is my commitment.
Commissioner Donchak.
Thank you. First off, Commissioner Savilicek answered a lot of my questions that I was going to ask. And Dwayne, thank you for once again clarifying the difference between the county's storm runoff versus flood runoff, where the county plans for storm. And I know that the actual drainage facilities and the FEMA floodplain won't be addressed until the final map. But, and according to this, there's only 3 acres that are actually in the actual floodplain?
I think
according to this,
right.
there's only 3 that, are they up in the northern corner? So most of this property has nothing to do with the floodplain itself?
That's correct.
And you mentioned, and I've read here, and there's several different basins planned.
Detention.
Detention basins planned. So they're planning for stormwater, not floodwater. What is, any idea of what the normal runoff in this area is that we'd be dealing with?
I don't have those specific details for you, Commissioner. I believe that we do have representatives that could answer the question if you'd like that level of detail.
Just to give me a total, because, I mean, flooding is a major issue in the valley. Even though there's only 3 acres that are in the floodplain, the rest is not. It might give a better sense.
So Commissioner Donchak, you're specifically asking for information about stormwater
The
runoff
general
or
stormwater
just-
runoff.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe I can answer it in a little bit of a general way, that the development is conditioned to retain its stormwater runoff so that it does its mitigation requirement. It's required to mitigate that impact. So as we all know, undeveloped ground can absorb water up to a certain point, then it runs off the surface. When there's development, streets, homes, sidewalks, it eliminates that ability for that water to enter into the ground. And so part of our conditioning process is that they build basins and routing to mitigate those impacts so that their stormwater runoff does not exceed, after development, the pre-development condition. And I believe this developer has taken the further step to look at additional ways to mitigate and actually retain more volume than what they were generating under the pre-development condition.
I appreciate that clarification for the public who may not have been able to read the documents to the level that we have them. Thank you.
Mr. Pelham.
If I may, the applicant is here and they do have a presentation, and that actually may address some of these
Okay,
questions.
so if we could, would you mind if we waited on that? And then I'll get the rest of Commissioner's questions for staff.
I'm good. I'm good, too.
Commissioner Bruce.
I have one question, and well, sort of one question, but you have said that in referring to last year's precipitation, that it was record-setting and unprecedented. What would they call that? Would it be a 500-year, 1,000-year rain as far as the general consensus is?
Commissioner, there are certain rain gauges that in the areas throughout northern Nevada that showed anywhere from 60-year return frequencies to, I think the largest was a 350-year return frequency. That's not the sole measure of flood impacts. What we saw last year specifically, and if I can just take a moment, was a series of precipitation events that in effect saturated the ground to the point at which no additional water could go into the ground. And so even those small events turned into precipitation runoff events. So we saw undeveloped areas, untouched, that were ponding or running water off of them because the ground was just so saturated. So I caution you to think about last year's events strictly in terms of a return frequency, a 100-year event or a 500-year event. It's a combination of elements that led to those events that occurred within the closed hydro basins. I hope I'm providing a little bit of clarity.
My problem has been for a long time that people talk about record setting, and it's like, how long have we kept records? And it seems to me maybe 150 years. And we have built it up and messed with the absorption rate by buildup and runoff rate. And as I keep thinking about, I wonder how much precipitation there was when the Donner Party enjoyed their debacle, where we didn't have any record keeping. And so we make all these assumptions based on the records we have, and everything rolls along until it doesn't work. That's my problem, and it has clearly not worked in Lemon Valley, and I wonder seriously, given the fact that people are talking about the weather changing, and we're talking about atmospheric rivers, and we're talking about seeding for more precipitation, how that's going to impact it. And do we have really sufficient leeway for what I think may be a lot bigger? But that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioners, are there other questions for staff before we have an applicant presentation? Okay, thank you. We may bring you back for more questions. So an applicant presentation, please.
Maybe. Then on the back end of this round there, maybe? For the record, Chris Baker with Manhard Consulting here on behalf of the applicant. I think I've got a quick PowerPoint that's loading. Maybe. Okay. A lot of this stuff, Roger might have already gone over. Let's just kind of jump forward here. Project location, I think everyone's mostly familiar with that. Again, this is within the eastern portion of Lemon Valley, east of the existing Lemon Valley subdivision. Those parcels there are highlighted in yellow. With this, if you recall, I know most of the commission was the same. We were before you for a master plan amendment and a zone change a little over a year ago. That was, as I believe Roger put it, to kind of remedy a mapping error. In the situation, the majority of the slopes that were in excess of 30% were actually zoned for development, and a lot of the slopes that were less than 15% were actually not zoned for development. With your experience and as many projects as you see, you can understand that that was actually kind of backwards. So we went in and remedied that. And I believe I said it here. I definitely know I said it at the CAB. And I know I spoke with a few of you on the way out. We said we wouldn't be back here unless we could help resolve the hydrology issue, because it was right in the middle of some of those unfortunate events. So typically, when we start from scratch, we look at our goals, and those goals are usually that second bullet there, to meet or exceed, Washoe County's design standards. We kind of put that down. What we were looking for, truthfully, we saw an opportunity here. We have a very large piece of property, most of which we weren't planning on developing. So our number one goal was to participate in a regional hydrology solution. We just didn't know how to do that. So what we did, we went out and conducted meetings. It's funny, obviously the number one goal that was brought up at all the meetings was we want less water going into Swan Lake. We want reduced flows, we want reduced volume. So that was goal number one. There were also goals where, even though there were areas that were not affected in the flood levels raising of Swan Lake, there were people's culverts going down existing neighborhoods that were flooding. That was kind of some isolated stuff that you really didn't quite hear about. So we looked at that too, as far as reducing flows through existing neighborhoods that ultimately ended up in Swan Lake. And then obviously we still had to meet our Washoe County development standards. In this case, consistency with master plan, zoning designations, the lot pattern in this development needed to fit the site topography, because we did have some steep slopes. Protect open space, which we do have a significant amount. All of that was achieved through the common open space development. We needed to meet some hillside standards. Truthfully, we're staying off of those areas, so that wasn't too difficult for us to meet. And then we had to be consistent with the North Valley Area Plan requirements. In this case, staff brought up edge matching, so we did that. Also, there's some requirements for single-story homes adjacent to existing residential. So overall project summary, like I said, we do have a pretty large property here, 128.5 acres or so. Like I alluded to, the master plan and zoning designations are both split. So we have a suburban residential master plan on 68 and some change acres, and a rural master plan on almost 60 acres. And then those corresponding zoning designations, medium density suburban, which you guys know allows 3 units per acre, and rural, general rural, which allows 1 unit per 40 acres. Again, we have 128.5 acres. We're actually only proposing residential lots on a little over 30 of those acres. When you combine that with the right-of-way, which is a little over 9 acres, we're approximately developing 40 of the 128 acres, which leaves quite an abundance of open space. So that all goes back to our original proposal of, hey, we have a lot of open space here, we see a problem, you know, it's not, truthfully, we felt it was our obligation to do more than no net increase, which you hear a lot of. We had an opportunity and we wanted to explore that. The result is 206 lots with an average lot size a little over 6,500 feet. I heard some talk about density before. We're at a gross density of 1.6 dwelling units per acre. To orient you now, just because of the exhibit, north is to the right. Is there a laser on this by chance? Maybe? Kinda? Okay. So this is how we're fitting into the existing subdivision. These parcel lines here are the existing Lemon Valley subdivision. Again, north is to the right. There has been lots of talk about hydrology, and I'll get a little further into that with some existing condition maps that we had Cardno do, and then I'll run through some what our proposed hydrology is and how that affects, you know, storm flows through the neighborhoods and actual total volume into Swan Lake. But I do just want to point out, here's our residential lots. For some context, this is Patrician here, which just kind of stubs into the property. This is Kess Way here, and then this is Palace. All 3 of those roads just stub now directly into the property. Again, I don't have a slope map here. The name of the roads? Yeah, absolutely. So this is Patrician here. This is Kess, and this is Palace. And then to give you some context, Lemon's here. And then you heard some Deodore Way is right here. So our project site actually ends right here. So again, we have all these areas are less than 15% where we're proposing development. The open space areas are identified in this lighter tone color, and our proposed detention and retention basins are in the blue color. It is important to point out that our site actually does end here. What we did was, in trying to determine how we could best solve some of this regional hydrology issue, and again, it's isolated to our site, but we felt it was our duty to do more than our fair share. So we actually contacted some adjacent property owners, and we acquired some adjacent property. A lot of the flows are coming down this area now. So we actually have proposed 3 detention basins off-site. We have 3 detention basins on-site, a large one here, another one here, and then a retention basin. So we have a total of 7 basins, 4 on-site, 3 off-site. We have a trail system that kind of connects all of this stuff back here through the open space. This is the edge matching portion. So we have existing lots here that we are, per the area plan, edge matching. And then all of the lots immediately adjacent to existing single family will be limited to 1 story. Let me make sure I've covered everything on that one. Okay, so getting more into hydrology. So this is the existing condition, so how it sits today, pre-development. We have what are called concentration points, and right now we have 3 of them. This here is a Washoe County detention basin. This is what we're calling the main outlet. And if you recall, there's an existing channel that runs down Patrician, through culverts, runs parallel to Lemon, and then discharges into Swan Lake through what we're calling the main outlet point. There's also an additional outlet point because this is all slope here, so it kind of splits. Half of it drains one way, half of it drains the other way. This is what we're calling WS3. And those are important when we go to the next slide, and I can toggle back and forth if you have any questions. So this is again, that was existing, this is proposed, so pre-development, post-development. The red areas, those are the polygons that are streets and lots, so that makes up that plus or minus 40 acres. But what we've done here is, again, the concentration points have increased. Before we had just the two at Lemon Valley, and then we had the detention basin, Washoe County's detention basin. These identify the 3 offsite basins that we're proposing. This is that one large basin that I pointed out, those 2 other basins, and then our retention basin. This here will function as that WS3 flow, and then the main outlet is still in the same place, that's off our property. This is, again, that existing channel through the neighborhood. Okay, so this table, I did my best here to summarize existing conditions, proposed conditions. So that's pre-development, post-development. And again, the requirement per county code is to retain the 10-day, 100-year flood. And then there's obviously a no net increase leaving our site. So to put it in context, we have the main outlet in the WS3. So those are those 2 points adjacent to Deodore and adjacent to Lemon. Technical difficulties. Okay. Going back to those original goals. So when we spoke with the public, we had a series of meetings. We went to the cab a few times. We had 2 independent meetings that we held directly at the church facility there on Patrician, and they were well attended, as you could imagine. We tried to focus on, hey, what are your goals? And obviously hydrology was the biggest thing. So that first goal is dealing with Swan Lake. The secondary goal was reducing flows through the neighborhoods. So I'm gonna tackle that first. So right now, the existing channel, and again, that is this area here, going down Patrician, and then paralleling Lemon. Right now, that is 199 CFS is their peak flow rate. Post-development, again, because of all of the off-site detention basins and the series of detention basins we're proposing on-site, we're actually proposing to reduce that flow down to 48 CFS. So this is, if you're familiar with the neighborhood, I know a lot of you went out there. If you drove up Patrician, you'll see that there was no curb, gutter, and sidewalk. There was open channels, and there was culvert crossings at every driveway. So in a peak event, 199 CFS goes down that street. Post-development, we're reducing that by over 75%. So that provides immediate relief for those adjacent neighbors. Then the next thing is flows going into Swan Lake. So the main outlet and WS3, their peak flows combined. So this is total peak flow going into Swan Lake is a little over 380 CFS. With our improvements, we're reducing that down to 230 CFS, a reduction of peak flows going into Swan Lake of nearly 60%. The next column deals with volume. So this is total amount of water. So we have flow of water in the first 2 columns, and we have total amount of water going into Swan Lake. The last one deals with the main outlet and WS3 right now discharge 23 acre-feet of water in a 100-year, 24-hour event. With our improvements, we're actually reducing that total volume of water going into Swan Lake down to 14 acre-feet, which is nearly 40%. So I understand the comments. We've heard them for the last year and a half. And truthfully, we're very proud of this. It was brought up at the CAB by a few of the advisory board members that you don't see this. You don't see people actually going above and beyond and numbers that aren't just a no net increase. So I appreciate the public saying, you know, here's pictures of flooding. But this is the one time where I can stand here and say, you know what, we're actually doing better. We're trying to prevent that from happening. And it's not just a no net increase situation. It's a you know what? Post-development, you're actually going to be better off than pre-development. And none of this actually takes into consideration the 2-foot increase in elevation for Lemon Valley Road. So those numbers are actually just getting a little bit better. So with that, I mean, we agree with staff's recommendation for approval. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Even the addition of the newest amendment, that the condition to YY,
Yes,
you
that's
agree
so.
with that as well?
So right now, this assumes the road elevation is significantly lower than what they're proposing. So what that does is if the road increases, that actually gives us the ability to provide more storage on the south end.
Okay.
So, and I know there was one question about the flood zone. And I know I went through all of that, I didn't answer your one question. So the flood zone is actually included in this area that we're proposing as part of our retention basin. There's a 3-acre piece that actually sits right by this main outlet, and it's kind of this little corner here. A portion of it's in the right-of-way, and a portion of it's on our property. So we are proposing no development there.
Okay, so I'm going to start on this end. Commissioner Bruce, do you have questions for the applicant?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Chesney?
Yeah, I appreciate what you've done with the hydrology on this thing. I really do. I think you've gone way above and beyond what the requirement is for it. What I hear and see tonight is we've got really 2 issues. You know, we've got the cure world hunger issue of the flooding in the valley, and then we've got your project, which your project is, in my opinion, done a lot of work to mitigate any additional outflow to Swan Lake. And so I think in our minds, we need to separate the 2 issues. And
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, and I think that was a very difficult point to convey throughout the process of this. You know, the way we did this was we originally went out and identified areas, not for development, but identified areas for retention basins and detention basins. We took that to the public and said, here's what we're thinking, you know, and then here's what's left. These areas that we could accommodate units. And what we got was any development is going to be bad, is going to increase floodwaters, is going to make a bad situation worse. And to kind of echo what the county engineer is saying, development done right in actually doing above their fair share is, in my opinion, the solution to this. It's not going to be done with one magic wand. It's going to be developments such as this that do a little more than they need to, that over time helps alleviate the problem.
thank you.
And I would echo that. I applaud your efforts to do the right thing and recognizing that, and you've heard me say from this dais over and over and over again, that even though this is a tentative map and things do change, if all developers would do due diligence to see how their project has negative impacts as well as positive impacts. So thank you. Commissioner Donchak.
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend you for, as we're saying along, going above and beyond, because we all know that not only in Lemon Valley, but other areas in Washoe County have a lot of floodplains, a lot of flood issues, and if all developers would think like you, it would make it much better all around. Thank you.
Commissioner Haran.
What is I'm not a hydrologist, and
That makes 2 of us.
how do you get from 381 to 230? Where does it go?
It actually is stored on site in those. So right now, there's only 1 basin. When we add 6 more, it gets stored and it gets
Released
retained on site, so recharge.
Okay,
Or evaporation, a combination of those.
thank you.
Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What engineering firm did your hydrology study?
Cardno?
Are they a local firm?
They are a local firm, yes. And they were actually doing studies in the area, so they had a bunch of they were working with the adjacent properties also, so they had significant back knowledge, and I know they've worked with the county in the past.
Okay, was there a peer review?
An internal peer review for Cardno?
A peer review of the hydrology report, are we supposed to accept it? I guess what I'm trying to, my concern is this. I've seen so many engineering reports and hydrology reports and geology reports prepared by people that have an interest in them saying what they want to. And I'm not, this is in no way denigrating you or your firm. I respect that you're trying to do the right thing here. I also know that resources for staff don't include the geologists on staff in this example. So we get these reports and we say, believe them. And I'm hard pressed to do that. I also am hard pressed to believe that your development is isolated over here in relationship to the broader picture, because as I heard earlier, there is no strategy to raise Lemon Drive. And so as Commissioner Horn mentioned, you've got this effect that we're putting more residents at risk. And by putting more residents at risk, on the hopes that the next developer will do a kind job or do a good job, I just have those concerns. And so I guess trying to form this as a question, how can I trust the hydrological report when I have these concerns? How can I trust it?
If I may, Commissioner Lawson, I think the stopgaps are in place with the engineer and the state water master and everything that comes into play, because what we have before us this evening, and I do want your question to be answered, but we're in the beginning steps of a very long process. Right now we're addressing a tentative map and looking at what goes into play. And you've heard me say, and my fellow commissioners have heard me say this, that this process gets so convoluted that when we start in a tentative map and we're always asking futuring questions, we could bring in research document after research document, and I work for a research institution. I work for UNR, so I live and die by peer-reviewed articles. But I also know that when we have these stopgaps in place with our county engineers and our state engineers, I think they're the people that have that responsibility to do their due diligence to make sure that they're getting verifiable information.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the clarification. With respect, I still contend that there is a dearth of staff resources with specific expertise in many of these instances to address some of these concerns. And I respect that this is a tentative map, but it's also been my experience that once it moves past the tentative map, the public no longer has a say. And that becomes my concern.
They most certainly do.
And
as it continues to progress, because they have to submit their final maps. If we could have staff to address what the process is, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Roger Pelham. This really is the last time when we would have substantial public input into the process. After this, we would be looking at a set of construction drawings. We would be looking at, again, those final specifications. This is may we go ahead and do this and do it in more or less this manner? If the answer is yes, then they go about and do substantial engineering and final detail work. And that may take, a couple, 3 years before they've done all of that engineering work and finally get a set of construction improvement drawings in. At that point, it's going to be reviewed to a very high level of detail by planning staff for planning conditions, engineering staff for all of their conditions, health staff. All of the relevant agencies will then ensure that not only the basic code requirements, but any additional conditions that are placed upon the tentative approval are complied with prior to approval of that final.
Approval, yes. So there is a process that people can continue to review and continue to follow and continue to seek information.
Certainly.
But not provide input.
If I may, thank you.
I would say on a general level, there is always the opportunity for interested public to interact with the staff that is doing that review. We don't close ourselves off.
Thank you. I wasn't suggesting that. My only point is that there's no more public comment opportunity.
Is there other questions for the developer or for staff before I open it up to the public? Okay, thank you. So we'll open it up to public comment.
We have Tammy Holt Still, followed by George Still.
I'll need the overhead again. Tammy Holt Still, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee, for the record. To continue what I was talking about with the sewer plant, when he mentioned the raising of the elevation around the berm around there, they spent over $500,000, and they're claiming it as part of the emergency and what they're doing for Lemon Valley. $500,000. You can see it right there from the report I received. There's one picture of the berm. There's another picture of the berm. You will have those pictures. Also, the permitted capacity of the lake, or of the sewer plant, excuse me, is 0.33 million gallons a day. During the January-February year, they exceeded by 0.03 to 0.611, and this comes from NDEP. This is official. I don't care what he said. I'm telling you, they exceeded, and they are still exceeding. To top it off, if you take that 206 rooms and you times it by 3 bedrooms, which is the average house, that comes out to 618 rooms. You take 618 rooms times 120 gallons, which is the average, it comes out to 74,160 gallons. Then you add in, and here's where the accumulative comes in, you add in, City of Reno just approved a 10,000 square foot building that has a full service restaurant and retail. Full service restaurant is 15,000 gallons a day. The retail is 500 gallons a day. You add the 74,160 to it, you've got 89,660 that they're adding to what their limit is already, which they meet, which is the 0.33 a day. They will be exceeding. To top it off, I received this from Dana Searcy. As you can see there, on December 31st of this year, that permit for that sewer plant will be expired. What are they going to do then? Then you top it off that none of this includes the shells over by the Shell station. There's 3 buildings going in there. You have the apartments over on Military Road and Lemon Drive that my understanding are supposed to be going to that sewer plant. You also have the warehouse that is just getting to break ground. So when it comes to that $6,300,000, that needs to be repaid to the residents since they're using it. Also, the 81, I'll leave that there for you.
Thank you.
George Still, followed by Denise Ross.
Hi, I'm George Still, for the record. Second, I'm going to pick up on this that Tammy was reading. Second, the $81 million fix. So a special assessment district is not the correct answer. Most of the residents in Lemon Valley are on septic tanks and do not generate affluent waters that are going into the Swan Lake. You assess those residents and developers, not us. I will broadcast to the moon for every resident to fight this. Just to go on to address you guys, I'm a 40-year Lemon Valley resident. What's going on out there is definitely an effect of affluent going into that lake, new building because they've changed the contour of the ground, and you're getting a real fast flood rise and a lot of water delivery to the lake. Raising Lemon Drive. That's a nice Band-Aid and it's a nice dike, but the problem is water, too much water. We had a big water year, but it most certainly wasn't the record of all of them. There have been a lot of, probably 5 other events that the same amount of inches of precipitation came into that valley, and that's from the Stead Airport. So with that, as far as more development and more hookups, we got a big problem out there now, and anything done is going to increase the problems. And I would say until the infrastructure is done, to include the roads, the whole road, not just piecemeal, we ought to be very careful on what is approved. Very, very careful, because it's a problem. People's homes are still underwater. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise Ross, followed by Melissa Wiseman.
Hi, Denise Ross, Lemon Valley Flood Relief and Assistance. In all due respect to the engineers, we've got decades of reports that suggest that there's going to be a serious flood issue that have been ignored. I don't know what else I can say about that. Could I have the overhead, please?
It's on.
Nope, it's on, okay. Oh. I'm trying to get it. Okay, right here is where they want to build in the retention ponds. I'm telling you, the retention ponds can't do much to hold back water like this. This was taken last year before the February 16th storm. Oh, sorry about that. Here's the other one. This is where they're going to be building right along in here. And right here is where they're going to add to Lemon Drive. I really don't think a whole lot can be done to stop the water going into here or here. Any retention pond for 7 to 10 days isn't going to do it. I also have some other pictures. Another picture of this right here.
If you could bring your mic towards you, because we do have to record that. Thank
Sorry.
you.
This is going down Lemon Drive, headed towards their property. This was last year. I don't know. I really don't know where they're going to build. Anyway, okay, I'll do my real quick thing. Okay, staff put together a really nice, comfortable presentation. I've showed you some really uncomfortable pictures. There's no way that that detention pond or any holding pond can control the waters or help mitigate floodwaters. I'd like to stand here and give you all kinds of quotes from today's Reno Gazette Journal article, but I'm fairly certain you've all already read it. If you haven't, you need to. The question is, are you going to stop listening to the many denials of responsibility and start doing what's right? You might think to yourself, well, this is only a 206 lot approval, but it's not. Think of all of the developments that are going on in that area. Think of the whole of the total that goes into that lake, not just this development. All the water that comes in for these houses, it's going to eventually end up in Swan Lake. All building that will have any impact on Swan Lake needs to be halted until further complete studies are done to understand what the collateral damage is going to be to Swan Lake and to the effects on additional properties, all properties, not just the properties that are being bought out by Washoe County.
Thank you.
Melissa Wiseman, followed by Josh Miller.
The one closest. No, not that one. Yeah, that one.
Melissa Wiseman. I am opposed to the unrestricted growth. The Lemon Valley Heights North project is, the lot size is not conduent to our open space areas. Yes, this is a flood year, and I'm very sorry that we're dealing with all of the flood, but we all know Nevada weather, and there's not always flood. And so 5 years ago, we would be upset that he was keeping the water from the basin where the wildlife and birds need the water that is now being stored further upstream. Lemon Valley Drive is going to be a 4-lane road. We're going to have to accept that, and I think that we should have that in place before we increase the housing out there. Like I said, the north size lots are 8 houses per acre. I understand there's no street lights out there, but that's a whole lot of porch lights that are going to pollute our beautiful star line. That's also, okay, so we're very concerned about public access to future BLM land. Thank you very much for not building on all of these acres. Your numbers game is really impressive. But what's going to happen to that open space land in 5 years when we decide that we're going to put, one house per acre on that after all, as long as it's independently developed? That's one of my big concerns is, thank you for not building on it today, but what is the guarantee that it won't be built on tomorrow? Fire protection. Our Lemon Valley Volunteer Fire Department out there, there's still not shoveled the snow that's in front of the doors for our Lemon Valley protection. Our closest fire station is in Silver Lake, and I'm told that the average response time is 15 to 17 minutes under the best of circumstances. How is that going to change when there's more people to protect? We have the $2.5 million that we just gave to the Stead Airport out there. How will that affect different development in that area? Let's see, what else? Can I bring up the traffic to town and how we have no legitimate way to get to town safely and in a time-effective manner? I think that's all of my notes. Anybody want to jump in? Oh, how much was the levees raised to keep the effluent water inside? Like the foot? Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Josh Miller, followed by Danny Cleus.
Hi, my name's Josh Miller. This is a picture of the area they plan on developing. This is the county flood hole or pit that we got.
I need you to speak to your microphone, please.
That's the county pit that we currently have. I think if there was a valve in that, it would hold a lot of water, and the water retention numbers would be closer to what he has with his 6 water holding areas. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the schools. I saw some other numbers that showed Lemon Valley Elementary being at 107% capacity and North Valley's being 117% capacity. Now, I'm not totally against having the development, but maybe they could add a park or some roundabouts or some speed bumps. We do get people speeding up and down Kess and Patrician, and I don't think that's too much to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danny Cleus, followed by Rob Sheets.
Danny Cleus for the record. I just want to let you know that the development that he wants to do, which obviously gets left out, the north side of over here, right at that line. Just right here is where he wants to develop. That line has been there forever. That separates the rural part of Lemon Valley to the front part of Lemon Valley where there's subdivisions. It's always been that way. It needs to stay that way. We don't need houses jammed up next to each other. The two yellow spots, that is Prado Ranch. We are fighting the city on that one too, because the guy wants to put in warehouses. He's already been denied by the city once. Now we gotta fight it again. He has some more property up north. We're fighting that too. Obviously, you don't see him here today because he was at the cab and couldn't do it. Talking about total rainfalls, and this is from the Stead Airport. 1986, January, 0.73 inches. February, 11.77. 2017, January, 6.65 inches. February, 2.33. We didn't flood in 1986, people. I was there. If you want to go to total rainfall from October to October, 1986, 22.03 inches. 2017, 19.64 inches. Why did we flood? I'll tell you why we flooded. Too much effluent water, too much building going on there. We have north valleys, closed basins. That area was not made to do what you guys are doing to that valley. None of those valleys are. And it was 1 minute and 45 seconds when I came up here. So.
Just wrap it up quickly, please.
Well, I'm going to get my 3 minutes out of this one. You guys talk about snowpack. It's estimated snowpack off of Mount Rose. It didn't come off of Peavine. That was on the news. The flood in a 24-hour period. Come on. We didn't even make it to a 100-year flood in a 24-hour period yet. We haven't even made it to a 100-year flood in that valley yet. If we did a 100-year flood, I would have 4 feet of water in my property. When we bought that property, my parents bought it. We weren't in a floodplain. Why am I there now? All the building, all the effluent water going in there. Another one, all the reports, hydrology reports, drainage reports, all the flow reports, they're made up. They come off of Steamboat Creek and a creek out of Gerlach. They take the estimates out of that to figure out that. There hasn't been a real study out there in the North Valleys forever. Why do we need retention?
I need you to wrap up your statements.
I need 3 minutes.
Well, we are now at 3 minutes. So I do need you to wrap it up, sir.
Retention ponds. Who wants mosquito ponds? Eventually, that water will go into that lake. But before, when Chris Baker, he said that bottom pond was going to be a detention pond. It wasn't going to be a retention pond. It was supposed to hold all that water. Another thing, that is in a FEMA floodplain. You got to have FEMA's okay to build there.
Thank you. And if we can be mindful of making sure that our clocks are accurate, please. Thank you.
Rob Sheets, followed by Donna Robinson.
Hello, Rob Sheets, Lemon Valley resident for 20 years. My statement is just the obvious for myself here. We have created this problem. The county has done an excellent job of clearing out the culverts, clearing out the ditches from the mud and the waste, but all of that has been dumped into Swan Lake for years and years and years. We've changed the absorption rate for Swan Lake. So to say that we're going to separate new development, and I applaud these plans and the ideas. I wish the city would have done that for the residents a while ago. But when you try and separate their plans for these containers or ponds to solving world hunger, which is the flood of Swan Lake, you can't separate it. all you're going to do eventually, because Swan Lake will continue to flood. We've changed the absorption rate of Swan Lake. Raising a road here for 20 feet and then hoping in 2040 or whatever that Valley Drive is completely raised up is not the answer. And again, if you try and separate the two, then all of these residents that are living there are going to be hearing this meeting complaining that they're flooded out and they can't get to their homes. Swan Lake is never going to just go back to normal. We've created this problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Robinson.
Donna Robinson for the record. Okay, let's put the elephant in the room to the side, so to speak, as Mr. Smith said. I think you guys have heard plenty on the flooding, not that I don't think you've heard enough, but some of the things that I want to address didn't get addressed from my first public comment. Okay, Mr. Smith said that the plan to extend or to widen Lemon Valley Road to 4 lanes is on the RTC. When? Before the development or after the development? How is that going to impact our traffic on Lemon Drive right now? I know from the time that I've lived out there, there have been 6 fatalities on Lemon Drive. 1 right at that corner. Another 2 young girls. One was a pedestrian in high school. Another one driving further down Lemon Drive. Both killed. And one by patrician, yes. But the fact is, until we answer all these questions, and I applaud Mr. Baker for having the foresight of looking at the hydrology, but whose responsibility? We have a school zone right there. Now, my kids are long graduated, okay? But what about the kids that are going there now, or 5 years down the road, or 10 years down the road? Okay, yeah, we're gonna raise this part of Lemon Drive. Oh, great. How about the safety of our kids who can't walk on the path because it's underwater? 206 homes. Minimum, what, 3 to 4 people in a home? Add to the affluent water. Adds to affluent water being put into that lake. Adds to the traffic going down Lemon Drive. Deodore, and if I understood right, Deodore right now is a dirt road, and the change to the plans or the concessions or whatever they called it is, oh, they don't have to pave that now. We're just going to raise part of Lemon Drive. Well, their exits and entrances are on Deodore. That's a dirt road. Who's going to maintain it? Homeowners Association? Come on. These are all important things that you, as the building commission, need to address and look at before approving anything from tentative. Yeah, we lose our say after this meeting. Once it goes into formal planning, we don't have a say anymore. Yeah, we might be able to come and talk, but we really don't have a say. So please, look at all the issues out there, not just the flooding issue. That's a big, important one, big elephant. But traffic, safety, law enforcement, fire. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further public comment.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions, follow-ups. I'll start at this end. Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the comment on traffic. Page 9 of 14 of the staff report. Traffic on Lemon Drive has been identified as a concern during the review of the project. The application materials include a traffic study that indicates that, quote, traffic generated by the proposed Lemon Valley subdivision will have some impact on the adjacent street network. The following recommendations are made to mitigate the project traffic impacts. And this is the mitigation. It is recommended that any required signing, striping, or traffic control improvements comply with Washoe County requirements. It is recommended that the segment of Deodore Way adjacent to the site and on all internal subdivision streets be constructed per Washoe County standards. And I was to understand that the double Y amendment that's called for the raising of Lemon Drive then removed the condition to pave Deodore? That's a question to staff. Did we take the paving of Deodore out as part of the negotiations for? I was a little bit confused with the change.
Yes, sir. Again, Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning. I believe that you have summarized accurately. Yes, the section of Deodore that was the emergency access would no longer need to be paved. The area of Lemon Drive would be raised instead.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Baker with Manhart Consulting here on behalf of the applicant. We actually have a condition of approval that requires us to relocate the Deodore intersection. Right now, it doesn't come in at a 90-degree angle, so we're actually required to move it further up Lemon and do full half-street improvements. So that's paving, curb gutter, sidewalk requirements for a collector road.
So that's a
So
new
not only
condition.
are we paving it, we're relocating it to make it safer. Right now, it doesn't function correctly.
Okay, then I heard that right, but then I didn't see the condition.
Yeah, there's a condition of approval in there.
Thank you. I was, and again for the applicant, who did your traffic study? And is that available?
Yeah, it should have been part of the application. It's definitely part of the application. Paul Seleghi, a local transportation
Okay.
engineer.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Haran? Commissioner Donchek?
Yes, I'd like, I don't know whether it be, or Mr. Smith, but to clarify the questions that were brought up regarding the effluent and the sewer capacities, if you could address that for us, please. Yeah, it had to do with the flow, yes.
Again, for the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering Capital Projects and your county engineer. Current flows into the treatment plant again are about 220,000 gallons a day. Using planning numbers that we utilize in facility plans, the current capacity of the plant has the ability to accept flows from this development as it sits today. I want to be clear, though, that there is a requirement as part of our permit that anytime we hit 85% of our permitted capacity for inflow into a treatment facility, the state requires us to initiate planning efforts for the next expansion phase of a treatment plant. That's for the Lemon Valley plant, that's for the Stead plant, that's for the Tumwharf, our South Turkey Meadows plant, all facilities. The question about effluent is certainly a good question, even though the volumes of water that are generated from the treatment plants are in general de minimis and do not have significant impacts to the water surface elevation. It is important to recognize that the City of Reno and Washoe County are also collaboratively planning we're in a joint facility plan currently, so we're working together with the City of Reno. Part of that facility planning work is to look at alternatives and options for reclaimed water and what we do with that reclaimed water to best serve the public as a resource moving into the future. So we are doing pilot programs right now. The City of Reno is engaged with the university and with Tumwa looking at a pilot program at their facility. And we're also looking at expanded pilot programs in other areas to determine what is best to do with that precious resource, that treated effluent. In the future, we're likely to see that effluent water treated to a much higher standard and used in other areas for other purposes, which may limit its ability, which may limit the amount of water that goes out into Swan Lake. We also know that we will always be required to put some amount of water into Swan Lake, again, for the protection of wildlife and our agreement with the Audubon Society.
What is the current capacity of the plant? What percentage of capacity are you at right now?
between 67 and 70%.
Thank you, Commissioner Bruce.
73%.
And that's what's happening, and then how do
We
you?
would be right below that with
With
the
this
flows.
subdivision.
With the flows from this subdivision. But I
And what
want
would
to be
be the,
clear,
okay. Go
we've
ahead.
already initiated that facility planning work that's required at 85%.
You've
We're
already
we're already
initiated
ahead of that.
Okay.
We're collaboratively working with the city of Reno on a joint facility plan. So we've hired several of our local consultants to assist us through that process. That is already underway.
Okay, because that addresses my next question, is of the approved but not yet built, which will have impact on this plan. So thank you. I interrupted you, so.
No, you were fine. That was fine. I had one more question. I think this might be more for Roger. Fire response was brought up, and I noticed that I know it goes out to all of the entities, but there was nothing in staff as to, from anything from Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District or in our documents.
If I might, while Roger's diligently gathering his paperwork, there was a question about the timing associated with the RTC's road widening project. So I took a minute, looked it up on my phone here. Let me, I can't. So I'm looking at the RTC's 2040 plan. I'm looking at the project schedules identified for the years 2017 to 2021. Reference number 13 is Lemon Drive. From Fleetwood Drive to Arkansas is to widen from 2 to 4 lanes from Fleetwood Drive to Arkansas. And that's identified on their 2017 to 21 program list.
May I ask, is that their preliminary or is that a set?
It's a program list. Of course, it's fund-based.
It's fund-based, yeah.
Okay.
So,
If I might add some context to that,
certainly.
as a member of the Regional Road Impact Fee, that was brought to our attention recently. That's a part of $160 million worth of roadway projects identified in the region in that time frame that are funded by Regional Road Impact Fees. And that is contingent upon approving the new fee structure, which we should have a report on soon, but is likely to be very contentious. There's a lot of pushback, I just am saying that's not a done deal.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawson.
To address Commissioner Donchik's question, I did not receive any response from Truckee Meadows Fire.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Commissioner Chesney.
I have no questions.
No questions.
Commissioner Bruce.
I have no questions, but I would like to commend the developer for making a really strong effort, but I think it may be a little too early. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I don't have any specific question. I struggle with things like this from the standpoint that we are so often ahead of the infrastructure in
Yes,
all of
we are.
in all of the things that we do, and we haven't even. This is specific to Lemon Valley Drive, but in the area that we haven't, nobody's talked about Cold Springs, 5,000 houses out there. It's very difficult to continue to do this, betting on the come, if you will, as to what's going to get done. And I think that everybody has done an outstanding job in, giving us facts, and they have a strong belief in those facts. I just struggle with, the fact that, there's no guarantee. And we've had a lot of issues out there. And this is not going to make them any simpler.
So Commissioners, before I entertain a motion, is there any other questions, concerns, comments? So calling, Mr.
I
Edwards.
have something to
Thank you.
interject, Madam Chair. Before a motion's made, I have no idea what motion's going to made or what the board is going to decide to do, approve, deny, whatever. But I do want to offer this. If there is a motion to deny, I would admonish you to tie it to the findings as you would a motion to approve. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm advising that you avoid making a motion to deny if that's what you do, on the basis that you simply think that there should be some sort of blanket stoppage of development out in this area. That would have to be done pursuant to a moratorium. There are legal provisions in the code for a moratorium. Those have not been put into effect by the county commission or by you. So there is no blanket halt to development out there. So you can approve, you can deny based on substantial evidence, based on the evidence in the record, but you need to tie it to the findings. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that clarification, because I was going to address that as well. So that we are bound by, as commissioners for this planning commission, we are bound by the code and we're bound by the findings. With that, since I'm a bit troubled that there isn't a fire report in here, and in terms of response times and impact on that. And so how can we pursue that to get that information?
Yeah, I don't know that it's possible to get that information tonight. However, we will certainly pursue that information, moving forward. I did have a conversation yesterday with Chief Moore from the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, and he recognizes not just this development, but the growth and we spoke specifically about the growth in the North Valleys area.
Yes.
And he's currently looking for alternative means of funding sources for expanding or possibly new development, as this is certainly an area of need that has been recognized by Truckee Meadows Fire for quite some time. So.
Okay. Mr. Edwards, do you have anything to add to that? And then we.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say in response to the fact that there's no report on that, at this point. I can tell you that, the fire regulations are codified in Chapter 60 and
Right,
through the
yes.
various different international fire codes that have been adopted, by the county commission. They apply whether or not you say they apply.
Okay.
It's not a matter of a developer is not able to simply escape application of the fire code because there was no report, at the tentative map hearing. The fire code is the fire code and it applies. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pelham.
If I may.
Yes, certainly.
Just to provide a bit of context, I would say that in my experience, we probably get comments back from fire half the time, on projects. So to have them, to not have them either would sort of be a normal occurrence. But I would reiterate what the district attorney has mentioned in that they will have to meet all of the conditions of the fire code again as the process goes forward with a final map, if there is an approval at this point with the tentative map.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, we are at that point for call for motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission deny tentative subdivision map case number WTM 18-001 for JDS LLC, having not made all 10 findings in accordance with Washoe County Section 110.608.25, specifically the public health, that the design of the subdivision or type of improvement is likely to cause significant public health problems. And also that the design of the subdivision does not provide necessary access to surrounding adjacent lands and provide appropriate secondary access for emergency vehicles.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Is there discussion?
He's second.
Yeah, but there can be a discussion
Oh,
on the motion.
discussion, is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. No,
Okay.
I have none.
I do. As reluctant as I am, and as I stated just a few minutes ago, I think that the strategy is not in place necessarily. But I also, in my serving on other boards and stuff, it's kind of that I don't necessarily agree with the findings not being met. And I think that I'm reluctant to go ahead and vote for this, but I would support a motion for it as opposed to against it.
So, Mr. Edwards, I have a motion on the floor, so I need to take action on this motion, and then we can entertain other motions. Is
That's
that
correct. You have a motion. That motion has been seconded. You're in the discussion period of that motion at this time. So yes, you will need to take action on the pending motion, and then if it passes, that's the end of it. If it doesn't, then you would entertain another motion.
Okay. Any other discussion before I call for the vote? All those in favor of deny signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to ask, I need to clarify that vote, correct?
That is correct.
Commissioner Lawson, you were voting yes to deny.
I am voting yes to deny.
Commissioner Haran,
No.
Commissioner Donchek,
No.
Commissioner Chesney,
No.
Commissioner Barnes,
No.
and I too vote no. So the motion fails. Now I'll entertain a motion for approval, or
Madam
another
Chair.
motion.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Chesney, I think your microphone is off. There.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve tentative subdivision map number WTM 18-001 for JDS LLC, having made all the 10 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code 110.608.25.
We need to, if you're making that motion for approval, if you would put the motion back up, Mr. Pelham, that would be, we have to have that YY.
That change.
This motion is not the most accurate because of the addition today of
Change the street.
Lemon Drive.
Oh, well then what is
The majority of that motion is correct with the addition of when they get it up. There.
Oh, okay. With conditions and with changes to condition number 3YY as specified by the county engineer, having made all 10 findings in accordance with Washoe County Section 110.608-25.
Is there a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Is there discussion?
I will comment that, I'm going to vote for it, but I would be very disappointed if staff and other agencies in their review of this did not hold the applicant's feet to the fire to make sure that they, are really going to do what they say they're going to do.
Absolutely, yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Chesney.
The final parcel map review committee is a subcommittee of this committee. I sit on that committee, and so this commission will be represented at the final parcel map approval. Just for the record. So anyhow.
We have Mr. Lloyd.
Clarify, yeah, this item will not be heard by the parcel map review committee. This is basically, this is the final discretionary action.
Okay.
By this board,
By
but
this
this
board.
will be heard by the Board of County Commission.
Only on appeal. This would be the final
Only on
decision
appeal, okay.
unless it is appealed.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Lawson?
I've said all I'm going to say.
No,
Madam
I'm
Chair.
asking for the vote, I'm sorry.
Oh, the vote? I vote no.
Commissioner Haran?
Yes.
Commissioner Donchek?
Yes.
Commissioner Chesney?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes.
Commissioner Bruce?
No.
And I vote yes. Motion carries.
I hope it's your house next time. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioners, we are moving to tentative subdivision map, item number B. So if I call for the agenda item, please.
Can we take 5 minutes?
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Couldn't get back in. You could get back in.
Yeah. Oh, no, they're doing WCTV. Well, that's the hardest part. Go with the rules.
What we do, and the thing is, I get the staff report, I have to go into the plans, and look at the whole development packets. And I can do that for them. This is why I have stuff in my valley that comes out. I send it out to people that are already in this, and say, here, this is the basic. You know, further, I can't, it's too big for me to send it to you. No, we are not all backs. Is he being interviewed? For what?
We don't have Commissioner Lawson. Can we convene? Coming back into session. And if you had to look at these little lights that don't shine. Stop it. So at item B, I'm calling for the agenda item.
Okay, this tentative map, tentative subdivision map, case number WTM 17-002, Golden Mesa South, for possible action, hearing, and discussion to approve a tentative map to allow the subdivision of a 35.85 acre parcel into a 32 lot subdivision with a 5.02 acre common area and lots averaging approximately 35,000 square feet in size. Presenting is Senior Planner Chad Geisinger.
Good evening, Chair Savelich.
Just a moment, please. Disclosures by Commissioners of Ethics and Ex parte.
I was at what I believe is the site.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, for the record, Francine Donchik, I live in Golden Valley. I am the current president of the Golden Valley Property Owners Association, and we did have the developers' representatives come out to our recent Property Owners Association meeting.
Mr. Edwards?
Is this development slated to become part of the Golden Valley Property Owners Association?
No, sir.
No? Okay. And have you made any commitments in your capacity as the president of that homeowners association as to how you're going to rule in this particular matter?
No, sir.
Do you have any pecuniary interest in the outcome of this procedure?
No, sir.
Thank you. I think that, thank you for the disclosure. I think that your role on the homeowners association is peripheral. It's commonplace for board members to be members of other boards and other agencies and things like that. And the fact that they are not slated to be part of that homeowners association, which would then, increase dues and things like that, that lessens the complications here. And I think you're, in my legal opinion, okay to preside in this.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Madam Chair, I also visited the site.
Okay. Any other disclosures by commissioners on ethics or ex parte communications? Okay. Now I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you very much, Chair Savelich. Planning Commissioners, again, Chad Giesinger, Senior Planner, Planning and Building Division for the record. This is the Golden Mesa South tentative subdivision map, and that is the site pictured in front of you for those of you who've been out there at the corner of East Golden Valley Road and Estates Drive on the northeast corner. It's a piece of property that's been vacant in the community for quite some time. It's a vicinity map there for your reference. It is right across the street from the North Valleys High School. This is the proposed 32-lot subdivision map. It will be an average net density of 1.18 dwelling units per acre. It has 33.8 acres of low-density suburban zoning, which is the 1 acre zoning, and 2 acres of medium-density suburban. But the overall development plan will result in a net density of 1.18 dwelling units per acre. There is 5.02 acres of open space, which is actually mostly comprised of improved drainage facilities, which is the blank area between the platted lots you see there. And the minimum lot size for the LDS zone is 35,000 square feet. The smallest lot within the subdivision will be 36,804, I'm sorry, the average lot size will be 36,843 square feet, and all of the lots meet the minimum lot size requirement. Do want to note at the bottom there, the North Valley's Area Plan Policy 5.1 does not allow the provisions of the Common Open Space Subdivision Development Code 408 to be utilized in the Golden Valley Suburban Character Management Area. So this is not a Common Open Space Subdivision, although it does have common area that will be maintained by an HOA, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Wanted to bring this map to your attention just to point out that this area of Golden Valley has been zoned for quite a long time for this type of development. And this map is now finally coming in to utilize that existing zoning. This is from a 1988 zoning map. There's probably even older zoning maps that show this area as 1 acre zoning. The reason why there's 2 other parcels denoted in red there is because in part this is a graphic from a previous tentative subdivision map that came before the commission called Golden Mesa North. This map before you was Golden Mesa South. The previous map, I think it was 115 lots. This is 32. There'll be a total of 147 lots of these 3 parcels total. Quick overview of the Golden Valley character statement. You can read there. Highlighted in red are just some of the more relevant aspects to this particular tentative map proposal. It is zoned, as that is mentioned, for low-density residential suburban land use pattern. This tentative map would realize that. And then also another issue is the use of curb and gutter and sidewalk to be minimized. Washoe County school impacts. There will be relatively minimal impact from this 32-lot development. School district anticipates 9 new elementary school students. The elementary school is currently over capacity, as you can see. There are improvements planned for that school. 2 new middle school students and 4 new high school students. Traffic and access. This portion of the overall development will generate approximately 320 average daily trips, 24 of which are AM peak trips and 31 PM peak trips. That's based on 32 single-family dwellings. There will be a single point of access to this part of the subdivision off of Estates Drive, although there will be a connecting road at the very north end of the subdivision, right there, that will go into the other portion of Golden Mesa North. It will not, however, provide access into the adjacent roadway of Golden Valley at that point. As you can see, that's not going to be perpetuated. So just that one point of access. There will be emergency secondary access from Golden Valley Road at the end of this cul-de-sac. Regarding
Chad, will that be by fire gates or something?
Yes, it'll be your standard 20-foot wide access easement improved to the standard of the fire department with the gates.
Thank you.
Yes. And a little later on, I'll speak about pedestrian improvements. We are conditioning that to be open to pedestrian access to access the Golden Valley frontage. Regarding the traffic report that was submitted with this overall project, there's really no need for improvements to the overall road capacity. However, there was a deficiency identified for left-turning vehicles, which I think are going east, but they say are going south, off of Estates Road onto Golden Valley Road. So there is a potential 2-stage left turn lane improvement proposed. The applicant is still working with engineering department on that as to the final design. But again, no other road improvements. And then you can see there in green, that's where the improvement would be placed. Right now, that's a concrete berm, essentially. Sewer and water service. This project will be sending flows to Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility on the river, so to Tumwharf. That is operated by the City of Reno and will require a will-serve letter from the City of Reno. There is a sewer lift station that was previously approved as part of Golden Mesa North under a special use permit that will assist in the sewer flows going to Tum Wharf. No effluent will be sent to the North Valleys or the Swan Lake area, unlike the previous project you just heard. And then as far as water service, Tumwa will be the municipal water provider in this area. Most of the surrounding lots are on wells. Tumwa has done the discovery study and will annex the entire site, both south and north, into their service territory, and there will be substantial cost borne by the developer to extend that infrastructure. In terms of grading, the site is relatively flat, so significant grading will not be necessary. The applicant estimates approximately 96,695 cubic yards of overall excavations of both cuts and fills. They will basically balance on the site with some import from the north project. It's flat enough that no berms or retaining walls are needed or are proposed. Disturbed areas will be revegetated with native seed mix, and temporary irrigation will be provided as necessary. And we'd like to note that much of that cut and fill in the 96,000 cubic yards is likely going to be improvements to the drainage channel that will be provided. Pedestrian amenities. The applicant is proposing to construct curb and gutter on the new interior subdivision streets, and that is because if they're not brought up to that standard, the engineering department won't accept them for dedication. So that's basically necessary. We kind of have a conflict between code and the area plan. However, we are proposing, or the applicant is proposing, to leave Estates Drive as is. That's already been accepted for dedication long ago by the county. So we are able to leave that as an open ditch situation to implement the area plan policy to the extent possible. However, sidewalk will be required along East Golden Valley Road frontage because it is a regional roadway. Here is the proposed sidewalk layout. The sidewalks will be on one side of the street only due to the very low volume of traffic anticipated on these interior subdivision streets. So the dark lines you see there are where the developer is anticipating providing the sidewalk network. I wanted to point out and bring to your attention, because we're leaving Estates Road with no sidewalk improvements, this easement right here will be provided out of the subdivision directly to where there is a sidewalk and a crosswalk on East Golden Valley Road, so that any children that happen to reside in this subdivision going to North Valleys High School can simply use that, or they can go through the secondary access that I previously mentioned, which I am proposing a condition of approval that there be a permanently open gate that's not locked so that pedestrians can get through that. But however, you will block off cars from being able to go in there. Regarding landscaping, the landscape plan submitted along with the application appears to meet code requirements. There's extensive perimeter planting of trees that exceed the 1 tree for every 50 feet standard. They're proposing a mix of deciduous and evergreens. And the North Valleys area plan, or North Valleys, I should say, the development code has a modifier for the North Valleys area that requires climatic adaptive landscaping in the front yards, so xeriscaping essentially. So there will be a condition of approval that the developer provide that type of landscaping. And here is the visual of the landscaping plan that's been submitted. You can see the drainage channel there stands out pretty well in this graphic because of the color. You can see the trees in the interior and the trees on the exterior there. Fencing and street lights. The perimeter of the subdivision will have open fencing. I know this can be an issue in these rural transition areas, except for where it abuts some existing lots which already have some fencing. And I have a graphic there illustrating the concept here of a solid fence on the subdivision boundary, but down here on East Golden Valley that'll be open fencing, and then also on the interior of the subdivision along the drainage channel. I was concerned about a tunnel effect being created if these lots chose to build 6-foot fencing in their backyards. So there's going to be a condition of approval HOA and the CCNRs will include a provision that has to remain as open fencing so that they look through into the channel, and that will also help maintenance potentially if things start to build up in the channels, they can see it. The applicant is not proposing streetlights to further the dark skies concept and policies of the North Valleys Area Plan. However, I do believe that some lighting may be necessary and required by engineering, say at an intersection for lighting purposes, and that'll be some future coordination occurring there. But the desire is to have as minimal amount of streetlights as possible. Now to the main topic at hand here tonight, the drainage issues associated with development. There is a significant improvement to what's an existing natural drainage way running across the site, and I have some photos on some subsequent slides to illustrate this. There is a FEMA flood zone that currently roughly follows this alignment that runs through the project site. It's my understanding that the applicant will be submitting a letter of map revision that will include these improvements to remove that flood, the extent of that flood area, and then focus it into this drainage channel so that it's not impacting the new lots. So there are two components here. There's the main big one that runs across the site, which is this one right here, and then there's this secondary drainage channel that will also be improved. As I mentioned previously, this will be a common area, but it's not common open space. The drainage facilities, they will be maintained by an HOA. There is a condition of approval that the county review a future maintenance agreement to ensure that it was perpetually maintained. And then Vector Control has requested a condition of approval that vector control elements be incorporated into the design of this channel. And there you can see cross sections. The first cross section, whoops. The cross-section on my left, looking at the screen, is the one running along the eastern part of the project, and then the main one is on the right side there, the wider one. So here's those photos I mentioned. You can see in the top photo there, that is roughly the existing drainage course. It varies in height, depth, and width as you walked it. I did go out to the site. I walked the entire drainage channel, all the sites. Got a secondary drainage coming in from the south that will also be collected as part of this facility. Down on the lower left is the existing, looks to be a 24-inch culvert that conveys these flows into another major drainage channel that's already improved on the other side of the States Drive. And that is just one of the culverts. There's also another culvert not pictured, both on this side and the other side of the States. And then the picture on the lower right is basically what the channel looks like at the point where the arrow is pointing. Hydrology, the applicant did submit preliminary hydrology report for both the north and the south tentative maps. Listed here are some key findings from the executive summary of that hydrology report. Main takeaway here being the 100-year flow rate leaving the site will actually be reduced due to the improvements proposed by 56 CFS. And the study reached the conclusion that the project as proposed can be constructed without increasing flood hazard to adjacent or downstream users due to the facilities being proposed. Just to give you an idea of the extent of the study that was undertaken and submitted as part of the preliminary hydrology report, in blue there is the entire drainage area that was analyzed. The red arrows are the flow rates. You'll see some yellow squares there. Those are already existing detention facilities. There's a very large one on the right across the street from the project site on the North Valleys High School site. But as you can see, much of the flow does come to the site, hence the need for the drainage facility, and then it will leave the area. The existing flows go this way, through that drainage channel on the other side of the States Road. Just wanted to point out some key conditions of approval that will be placed on this development. There is an engineering condition stating that there will be no net increase of water surface elevation within Swan Lake due to this development. So not just no net increase coming off of the project, but no net increase to the water surface elevation of Swan Lake. And then also, there will be a planning condition of approval requiring all design standards enumerated in the area plan, policies 5.1 through 5.8, be addressed and included in the CCNRs. 2 community meetings were held to review this project. One was already mentioned by one of the planning commissioners. That was the Golden Valley Property Owners Association meeting. The applicant reached out to them and met them on their own, February 8th, 2018. They provided the minutes of that meeting to me, and I've provided that as an Exhibit D to the staff report, if you'd like to see what they said. In general, they supported the project and felt it was compatible with surrounding development. The North Valley Citizen Advisory Board meeting at February 12th, 2018 went largely like what you saw tonight. There were a lot of concerns about Swan Lake, a lot of discussion about Swan Lake. Traffic was also mentioned on 395 and all the developments that are going on in the North Valleys, desire to protect dark skies, and then the traffic issue at the intersection of the States Drive and Golden Valley Road, which I've already mentioned. Regarding noticing, the requirements of Article 608 were met. There were noticing within 500 feet of the project site resulted in 50 different property owners. As you can see there, outlined in yellow, were all the properties that were noticed. And I'm not going to go through each one of these. There is a analysis provided by staff for each one of these findings in your staff report. We just went over this on the previous project, but here are the findings that are required for approval of a tentative map. Staff is recommending approval and does believe that all required findings can be made. And here is a possible motion for your, should you decide to recommend approval. And with that, I will open up to any questions.
Before we open it to the public comment, is there questions from commissioners? Commissioner Bruce?
No.
Commissioner Barnes?
No.
Commissioner Chesney?
None.
Commissioner Doncheck?
Yes, Chad, just one clarification. You mentioned that, I think that no effluent would be going to Swan Lake. So that's going into that would be the sewers and the channeling from there. And that goes into the Reno station, which I believe is being rebuilt or something right now, the pump station. And where's the effluent that would be going to if it doesn't ultimately channel to Swan Lake, just for my clarification?
Well, it's going to be a municipal sewer system, so it's going to be piped, and the sewer lift station is generating the pressure and the flow to pipe it back down to the City of Reno plant on the river.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Haran? No. Commissioner Lawson? Okay, we'll open it up to the, to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, do we have an applicant presentation?
She says no.
I believe I may have covered what they were going to present,
Okay.
so they're choosing not to present. Thanks.
Then I do have one more question.
Commissioner Doncheck?
One more question. You mentioned traffic, and the only thing you mentioned in the traffic was that left turn. There was something in the report about NDOT wanting something to be done at Golden Valley and 395 because they think there would be an impact.
I believe what that was in reference to is the RTC has a method of, what's the word, synchronizing the traffic lights in a certain way. So it's traffic signalization optimization, and I believe that's what they were recommending, and that was also a recommendation of the traffic report.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments before I go to public comment? Do we have any public comment?
We do. Frank Benedict, followed by Carlos Archuleta.
I see Golden Valley Road one.
You need to state your name and your
I'm
residence.
Frank Benedict. I've lived in Golden Valley for 46 years.
Thank you.
And I see the road one mentioned with our homeowners association out there. And the traffic's been pretty bad ever since they put that high school in. And there's a lot of semis double and triple trailer trucks going up to the pit up there. Also, school buses going both ways on Golden Valley Road. And it's pretty dangerous, and I think it should be widened at this point in time, since it wasn't done when the school was built. And it should be widened all the way to Sun Valley Drive, because this subdivision is going to increase traffic both ways on that road.
Okay.
And I didn't get to hear where the sewer, I thought that's pump station, I thought they pumped it out to Stead. It doesn't go to Stead, goes downtown? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos Archuleta, followed by Lois Malley.
For the record, Carlos Archuleta, I live in Golden Valley at 1795 States Road. I'm the one that gave you the letter that says I'm not in the floodplain, and you guys are gonna put me in it. I come before you today to speak against the Golden Mesa project. But after speaking to numerous people, it is a done deal. I should have known. The Marlin ditch that you guys promised to fix has still not been fixed, and you promised it long ago. My back property at 7095 Estates Road flooded because storm drains are too little to handle the water, and they were told that when you put it in. How about FEMA floodplain requirement? Has it been accomplished? The decision to put vehicle outlets on a state road was done without any concerns of how it would affect us on a state's road. Why no vehicle outlets on Golden Valley Drive? Why? Because it would create an unsafe driving hazard, as NDOT told you guys already. What do you think it's going to be like on a state's road, let alone trying to get on the freeway? And with that development you guys just approved today, they're gonna come over the hill and go down a state's road too. Don't let it kid you, because they are. I know you guys don't think this is real, but it's real to me. I could sit here and address a lot of problems and talk about schools, busing, condemning property for widening of the roads in the future, well concerns, septic concerns, but no one is listening. You would think the developer, as a courtesy, would speak to the homeowners on a state's road, not the homeowners association, us that it affects. And the effects of traffic and our way of life. It's going to be hell trying to get out on the state's road from where I live, because that fronts my driveway. And them outlets that they got out there, it'll be impossible, especially when I hook up to my horse trailer. What happened to the 1 acre, one dwelling per acre? Now they're talking 2 and 3 per acre? Oh, but that's okay, that don't harm anything. The developer comes in, convinces staff it's okay, then builds, then leaves. We as a homeowner are left to pay for the problems that arise from a bad decision. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm gonna tell you what. I feel just like that guy that walked out the door. We have no voice, and so we might as well let developers sit on the boards and the commissions. Then we'll for sure not have no voice or promises, faulty promises of representation.
Mr.
Thank you.
Archuleta, thank you very much.
And I have 10 days to appeal, right?
The
Okay.
appeal process is outlined,
Or
yes.
I will do that seeking legal counsel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lois Malley, followed by Henry Huddleston.
My name is Lois Maley, like the grocery store, but with an M. I live at 7220 Remington Road. The back of my property faces where that street's going to come out, so I need somebody's card so I can sue them every time a car hits my horse fence and hurts my horse or even kills it. I know I'm a little late to this parade, but I work 16 hours a day and it's a little hard to get to the meetings. I live in the gun streets, and once those houses that are city lots are approved, then that means the gun streets will be absorbed by the city of Reno because they will get annexed. I really don't want to be part of the city of Reno this soon in my life. I do believe that they will request to be annexed as soon as homeowners start moving into that area. So I really prefer if you leave it low-density housing instead of going to medium-density housing for that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Henry Huddleston, followed by, and please excuse my pronunciation here, Chego Keotaneda.
Are any of those people in attendance?
Hi, my name is Checo Castaneda. I live on 7125 State Road, right next to Carlos. And I'm against that project too also because for the simple fact of the traffic that it's going to create when the traffic starts coming out. Of course, I like to see you live right there on States Road, watch those lights coming in and out every night. You wouldn't like it. So think about that if in case you were living in that area. Now, the only thing that I don't think it's going to make any difference on it because for the simple fact is that it's going to create more traffic, and God knows what kind of kids we're going to get in this next round. The first batch when I came in there, they were monsters. They used to bust my mailboxes and everything all the time. I had to get a peel box because for the simple fact of the kids that were in here. That was when my kids were growing up. Now, I really seriously think that you guys should really think about this before allowing this, because the simple fact, it's going to create a big chaos, traffic-wise and everything. But I'll tell you what, I'll make it easy for these guys here. Somebody says that they come up here and talk to us. I never seen any of these people over there come and talk to us. Not one of them. They represent who they were, who they are. If they say they did, they're lying, because I never have seen them. And my neighbor and I have been talking about it. He says, did you get a so-and-so? I said, no, I don't even know who they are. Well, they keep pushing this deal because they want to develop that property. Well, I'll make it easy for them. They want to come in and move in. Obviously, we're going to be disappointed and disgusted. But before they do that, at least bring your checkbooks. Buy us out, and then you can do whatever the hell you want.
Thank you.
Danny Cleas. That was my last card.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak that has not filled out a comment card? If not, I'm closing public hearing and bringing it back to the board. Commissioner Lawson, do you have questions?
I do.
Okay. Yes, that little, I just still don't think it's on.
There it is.
There.
I'm a little confused about the parcel sizes. Gentleman spoke to 1 acre lots. I'm looking at this as 33.8 acres of low density, 1 dwelling unit per acre, and 2 acres of medium density, which would allow 3 per acre. So that's, I'm not seeing, are the lot size, is there open space? Is this one of those situations I'm missing, maybe I'm missing? Is there open space that allows them to consolidate onto smaller lots? What are the lot sizes on this?
The lot sizes are greater than 35,000 square feet, and the overall density is 1 dwelling per acre. They have 35 acres of land. They have 32 lots proposed. There's 5 acres of, it's not common area because it's not a common open space subdivision, but there's 5 acres of HOA area that will comprise the drainage facilities and will be maintained by the HOA. So the net density is 1.18 dwelling units per acre.
I appreciate that the net density is 1 point whatever it is, and probably is in compliance, but when I take the 5 acres out, it seems like these lots are not 1 acre, one dwelling unit per acre, like the gentleman was saying. Am I missing something?
There are going to be lots that are less than 1 acre, but they meet the minimum lot size for 1 acre zoning.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hand, Commissioner Donchik?
No, thank you.
Chad, I do have a question in terms of right now, because that is an empty lot, and there's no fencing or anything. Our high school students consider it a parking lot. And there's a lot of cars parked there because they don't, for whatever reason, they're not parking. So how is that, I mean, I know that you have noticed the adjacent properties and, all of those, but in terms of how is that going to be addressed when construction's, if this is approved and it moves through the process when construction starts?
They'll have to buy a parking sticker.
Yeah.
Or park in the
May need
school
to have
lot.
the applicant address this, but essentially they're trespassing at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
And so I guess the short answer is they won't be able to park there anymore.
Okay.
But how that occurs, through development, I'm not sure. I don't know if the developer will put up the construction
But, I
fencing
mean, and
or
I
what they'll
appreciate
do.
what you're saying is
Yeah.
that they're trespassing, but nothing has been done to prevent them from,
That's correct.
yeah, okay.
Not that I could see. I went out there and I noticed the same exact thing. Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
It has been addressed to the Washoe County Sheriff's Office at property owners' meetings. The Washoe County Sheriff's Office has gone to the school district to try and do something, but because the school district, part of that is Washoe County property, part of that is the private for the developer, there's not much they can do in there. We have requested for safety's sake that they not park there in the past.
Commissioner Chesney.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Barnes.
No questions.
Commissioner Bruce.
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Lawson?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
With respect to the traffic study and the level of service F at the intersection and the contention that that's okay, explain that to me, please.
So the traffic study pointed out that the left turn movements would reduce the level of service there, and the potential improvement is to have a two-stage left turn lane.
Does
That's
that-
what that would rectify, that would mitigate that issue,
Does
according
it,
to the traffic study.
does it bring it back up to a level of service greater than F?
Yes, I believe so.
And that's only during high peak.
I did not see that, how that, I understand that that's a mitigation strategy, but I didn't see the calculations or the contention that it then became a level of service E or
The
greater
traffic study
again.
is included in the materials. You'd have to dig through it and read all the details, but that was the conclusion of the traffic study.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rand.
Chad, the flow rates and where the water's going to go, did I understand it that the actual flow rates would decrease the drainage?
Yes.
The runoff rates?
The runoff,
Commissioner
yeah, I'm
Rand?
sorry, I didn't state that correctly. The runoff rates would actually go down.
The 100-year flow rate, yeah, would be reduced by 56 CFS.
Okay, thank you.
Other commission questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Do we have any?
Let me do it so I don't.
We're at.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Please do so I don't.
Then we've had discussion, right?
Yes, we
So
have.
you're calling for a motion?
I'm calling for a
Okay.
motion, yes.
All right.
I've kept you up too late.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approved tentative subdivision map case number WTM 17-002 for Golden Mesa South with the conditions of approval included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 10 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.608.25.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? I will call for a vote. Commissioner Lawson.
No.
Commissioner Haran.
Yes.
Commissioner Doncheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Chesney.
Yes?
Commissioner Barnes.
Yes.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes.
And I too will vote yes. The motion carries. We are now to item C, Development Code Amendment.
This is a Development Code Amendment, case number WDCA
Okay,
18.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have further business before this commission, so if if you have wanting to engage in conversation, if you could take it outside chambers, please. Thank you.
This is WDCA 18-0003, recreational marijuana, for possible action, hearing, and discussion to either deny or recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners proposed amendments to Washoe County Code, Chapter 110, at Articles 302, 304, and 410, to replace the existing medical marijuana establishment use type with the new marijuana establishments use type, to define the various types of marijuana establishments in accordance with state law, to designate the regulatory zones where both medical and adult use recreational marijuana businesses will be allowed in the county under state law, and to establish parking standards for new retail marijuana stores, dispensaries, and if approval is recommended, to authorize the chair to sign a resolution to that effect. And once again, Chad Giesinger, Senior Planner.
Let me do my stuff first. Disclosure by commissions of ethics or ex parte communication.
I did not visit any.
Okay.
No.
So I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners, Chair Savelicek, again, Chad Giesinger, Senior Planner with the Planning and Building Program, for the record. And now for something completely uncontroversial.
This is mellow compared.
But no, seriously, I think hopefully this will be, these amendments, I'll get to them in a little bit, essentially amount to changing terminology in the code. But before I get into the specifics, I'd like to provide you a story, a background. There's a very long process. Way back in 2000, the voters of Nevada enacted the Medical Marijuana Act, and that passed, and it took the legislature 13 years to act on that. But in 2013, the Nevada legislature did approve the legal use of medical marijuana by qualified patients. Upon passage of that legislation, the board directed staff to develop ordinances to establish procedures and regulations for the establishment of those businesses. The county did adopt those ordinances during 2014, and in 2015, the first medical marijuana dispensary in an unincorporated county opened. The majority of the regulations adopted at that time by the county ended up being contained in Chapter 25 of Washoe County Code, which is the business license regulations. However, there were amendments necessary to Chapter 110 of the Development Code, which is the purview of this board, because the land use code had to be amended to create new use types and development standards for the medical marijuana businesses, since it was an entirely new use that did not exist previously. And the code also needed to identify the regulatory zones where each type of business would be allowed, although there was some state requirements along those lines, which I'll get into here in a minute. So the adopted county regulations more or less mirrored the state law provisions that were adopted in terms of zoning and community facilities. So all medical marijuana establishment businesses had to be located in either a commercial or an industrial zone. The county chose to allow them in both, essentially. The required distances from community facilities, which I'll define here in a second, were mirrored by the county from state law, as well as the definitions of community, the distances and the definitions. So what is a community facility? It's a licensed, and that's a key word, licensed daycare for children, a public park, playground, or swimming pool, a school, or a church or religious assembly. So the distances from those facilities, it's 1,000 feet is required from a school. A business has to be 1,000 feet or greater from that. and 300 feet from all other community facilities. And that's what's been in place since that time. The use types that were created by the amendments were basically straight out of the state law, use the terminology that was in the state law. So a use medical marijuana cultivation facility, production for edibles, a testing laboratory, because that's a component of the state law. There's a robust testing regimen, and then, of course, the dispensary, all with a medical connotation, obviously. The regulations that the county adopted ended up allowing dispensaries in all of the commercial zones as well as the industrial zones, as you can see there by the use table. Medical marijuana dispensary is the second from the bottom there. You can see the A, which means it's allowed by right, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then all other uses were allowed in just the general commercial and industrial zones. So the production facility, the cultivation, and the testing laboratories. It was decided to allow the uses by right, which is common for most commercial uses that are located in general commercial zones, for example. So only the approval of a business license has been required. There's no special use permit process or discretionary review. However, there is significant agency review before business licenses are signed off. I've been part of a working group for, 4 years now, meeting with all the agencies. It's a pretty high standard to meet. And this agency review is in addition to the regulation and review by the state. They're kind of the first cut. They also review signage, do the background checks, seed to sale tracking, et cetera. So that's where we were before 2016 general election. The voters approved a ballot initiative to legalize consumption and use of marijuana by adults aged 21 and over, and to regulate marijuana much like alcohol. So on January 1st, 2017, it became legal in the state of Nevada, if you're over 21, to use marijuana. The state subsequently adopted what they termed a quick start program to enable the existing industry, basically, to move into this aspect of the business, and they adopted temporary regulations. Following suit, the county at that time also adopted temporary license regulations, and that has been in effect since July 1st, 2017. There's been temporary licenses issued to enable recreational sales in compliance with the ballot initiative. Only existing businesses with state certification were allowed at that time to apply for the temporary recreational license, so you had to already have been in good standing as a medical marijuana facility. There was discussion, what should we do about the development code in this interim, but we received direction from the BCC to wait to amend the development code until the state adopted its permanent regulations. That was a somewhat lengthy process. However, they have now adopted their permanent regulations. And so staff is now moving forward. I'm bringing forward the necessary amendments, not only to Chapter 110, but also to Chapters 25, where the bulk of the regulations currently exist, and also to Chapter 53, which is the sheriff's chapter, the public safety. The BCC did provide direction during all of these discussions that they would like to see the medical marijuana be regulated much the same as the recreational. They don't want to have two very different types of regulations moving forward. So therefore, the changes that we're proposing are not substantial. They're basically going to utilize the existing policy and regulatory framework that existed for medical. And you may be wondering, well, why didn't the Planning Commission initiate this amendment? That is because on December 19th, 2017, the board actually initiated amendments to all 3 chapters of the code that are affected by these types of businesses. Amendments to Chapter 25 and 53 go straight to the BCC. However, amendments to 110 must be first approved by the Planning Commission. So that's why we are here tonight with these amendments. As I alluded to at the beginning of my presentation, these amendments before you tonight are primarily involve changing the existing medical marijuana terminology and references to the new terms used by the new section NRS 453D. So the state is now referring to all marijuana businesses as marijuana establishments, which is going to encompass both the medical aspect and the recreational side of the industry. One new use has been created by the Approved Valley Initiative, and that is a marijuana distributor. It's kind of akin to a wholesale liquor distributor. And you may have heard many stories about that in the papers. That's all been resolved now. So that use will have to be added as well to the development code. So the regulations governing the zoning, location, and the approval process are all of that. None of that's being proposed to change. The definitions for what is a community facility is not being proposed to change. The required distance is not proposed for change. And the approval process is not proposed for change. It will remain a business license function. However, they are developing a single licensure procedure for these combined businesses. So to the proposed amendments. Here is what staff is proposing, and you can see on the left under the use types, basically just striking out the word medical and inserting the new terminology from the state, creating these new use definitions basically, but nothing else is changing in here except for the addition of the marijuana distributor use. As to where those uses are allowed, basically it's going to be the same. The marijuana distributor is going to follow suit with the other non-dispensary uses and be allowed in general commercial and industrial. And just wanted to provide that note down there. The distributor use is only about wholesale directly to other marijuana businesses, so it's not home delivery or anything like that. So just for a point of clarification, the top is the proposed amendments to Article 302 of the Development Code, and the bottom is the existing language in the Development Code. You can see there the uses are all the same. The only thing that's changing are the names. So Article 302 is the use table. Article 304 is our use definitions of the uses in that table. So that will also need to be updated to reflect the terminology changes. It would be amended to now refer to just marijuana establishments instead of the medical marijuana establishments. Again, it's going to encompass both medical and adult use businesses. And the county code will require that there be no standalone recreational dispensaries. They'll have to have a medical and a recreational component to be licensed. So by way of example of what these amendments look like, I didn't want to include them all, especially, I'm glad now I didn't so late. This is an example of what we did, basically going through and striking out all the previous terminology, adding in the new terminology. That's more or less all there is to it. And then we have terminology in Article 410, which is parking and loading. So as part of the original medical marijuana establishment ordinance, this new section of 410 was created. It basically created the parking standards that are in use today at the dispensaries. So we're simply changing the terminology on the left side there, as we did with 302 and with 304. Since we did have to open up this article to do that, we did decide at the staff level that it would be prudent to increase the required parking for new retail dispensaries. There's a much greater universe of customers now that has gone beyond the medical realm. We feel that's appropriate. However, all of the existing dispensaries will be grandfathered in under the standards they were developed under. So this would only be for, say, one closed and a new one opened, then this would come into play. We don't anticipate any new retail dispensaries in reality, but should one, for whatever reason, occur, they will be required to do 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet instead of 3 now, should this be approved. Regarding public notice, the code standard was met. It was noticed 10 days prior to this meeting in the newspaper of general circulation. Likewise, the chairs of all citizen advisory boards were noticed. There was a public workshop held on February 7th to offer the general public the opportunity to comment. There was extensive noticing done as part of that outreach effort through the C-mail blast that the county has, through all the lists to the industry itself, et cetera. And that was held in the Health District Conference Room. And I did not receive any substantive comments at that time regarding the Chapter 110 amendments. The only question I think I had was, what is the definition of a community facility? And so that explained that, and that was about it. Staff is recommending approval of the amendments before you tonight. Recommendation is on page 5, and here is a possible motion for you to entertain. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I just have one question, if I may. on page 3, where you're talking about the chart where they're allowed and not allowed, it's just something that I noticed. If you want to go back to your
Oh, the PowerPoint?
PowerPoint, your chart.
What page?
Okay.
Page
Page
three
3
of
of our
attachment
report.
A.
Oh, in the ordinance? Okay.
Our ordinance.
Of the
Gotcha.
ordinance.
The ordinance, I'm sorry. It was just curious. First off, it was very hard until I actually saw it up on the screen more than here, that the first line, marijuana establishments, I couldn't understand why there was nothing across it. Then I realized that was your header,
Yes.
because it was shifted maybe one letter over. It took a while. But on the original medical marijuana, it was listed under, so there is a change. It had applicable in NC and TC, and now it's not. So I'm just saying there was a change in that.
No, there's no change in where they're allowed. The top part is a category. The use table has, like, say, for automotive uses, there's a number of automotive uses, so it has a heading, automotive uses, and then it has the specific ones below that slightly
Okay.
indented. And so that's how this is what was done as well. But there is no change to the,
So
Maybe I'm
looking
misunderstanding what I'm
up here.
looking at, because it's not, it's here, but it's not in this one. The first one that came out and the revised.
You've got cultivation facility, A,
maybe I'm
down
looking at
here,
one.
same thing, and so forth.
Chad,
Maybe
what
it's
she is,
just, maybe I'm not clear what I'm looking at.
because what she is looking at indicates that there is a change on these charts.
So marijuana, medical marijuana isn't on here anymore. They moved it up to,
Okay, yes.
so they shifted
Yeah,
it. That's what, there's a shift because of the way you changed the verbiage from when the original staff report came out.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry,
this
I see
staff
what you're
report.
saying. I see what
And
you're
it was
saying.
confusing as to where it was and wasn't allowed until
Because we really,
we're sitting here looking at this going, wait a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I just want, no, I understand it now.
other questions? Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have a card for Carol Burns, but I do not see her in the audience.
Okay. So we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lawson.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission recommend approval of WDCA 18-0003 to amend Washoe County Chapter 110 Development Code at Article 302, Table of Allowed Uses, Article 304, Use Classification System, and Article 410, Parking and Loading, and to update these sections within the Development Code. I further move to authorize the chair to sign the resolution contained as Attachment A on behalf of the Washoe County Planning Commission and to direct staff to present a report of this commission's recommendation to the Washoe County Board of Commissioners within 60 days of today's date. This recommendation for approval is based on all of the following 4 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code, Section 110.818.15E. 1, consistency with master plan. The proposed development code amendment is in substantial compliance with the policies and action programs of the Washoe County Master Plan. 2, promotes the purpose of the development code. The proposed development code amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare, and will promote the original purposes for the development code as expressed in Article 918, adoption of the development code. 3, response to changed conditions. The proposed development code amendment responds to changed conditions or further studies that have occurred since the development code was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners, and the requested amendment allow for a more desirable utilization of land within regulatory zones. And 4, no adverse effects. The proposed development code amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the policies and action programs of the conservation element or the population element of the Washoe County Master Plan.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're getting a little punchy here. We're now at item 9, chair and commission items. Number A, future agenda items. Commissioners? Thank you, Chad. Request for information from staff. Item B. Seeing,
I don't know if this is, if this is the right place to bring this up, but we've had several contentious meetings here, and we have not had a sheriff's deputy on hand. And seeing as how we can't personally carry firearms, or we have no option to protect ourselves, the dollar be damned when we know we have a contentious meeting. And I knew the minute I got this agenda that it was going to be a contentious meeting. We should have a sheriff's deputy here.
We'll make, we'll make that recommendation. We'll request that of the sheriff for future contentious items.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
any other requests for information from staff? Item 10, Director and Legal Counsel items. Item A, report on previous Planning Commission items.
Nothing to report on previous items. I did want to report at the last meeting, I mentioned that we would have a survey out for you, and I apologize. That survey has not been launched yet officially. We hope to launch it very soon, and as soon as we do, you will all be noticed.
Okay, thank you. Number B, letter B, legal information and updates.
No,
Mr.
I
Edwards?
don't have anything else, Madam Chair.
Thank you. General public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. I guess I do.
Yeah, I told him not to tonight.
I may have some public comment. It's just that if there's a way, if there's any way that we can help the public understand that what we are bound by, I think they think we're the all-knowing, all-seeing orbs. And it's just, in terms of all those books over there, I don't think they fully understand the scope of our responsibility. So if staff, when they make those reports or something, you know, there's a way to let them know that we, you know, this is a labor of love.
Can we have a little discussion on this?
Well, it has to be agendized to have discussion.
Oh, okay.
Because Mr. Edwards is going quickly to his microphone.
Well, I was going to ask, can we have any autopsy sessions where we talk about things that we've already done and why we disagree? Would that be
That would
legal?
be, again, have to be something that we would have to agendize, but
I'm not sure
Mr.
that it
Edwards.
would be.
Yeah,
As long as we don't talk about anything coming up.
No, you would need to have it on the agenda to have a discussion about an item.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you all.